right. Are we live? We live? Yeah. Make sure we up. We live on Kick and Twitch. So, what's going on, everybody? Let's let everybody know I'm in here. All right. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We are doing it early today. There we go. What's going on, Scruggs? Yeah, we early today because I want to make sure that I'm available for medicine tonight. You know, medicine is definitely one of my favorites for sure. So I want to make sure I'm available for that. So I figured I would kick it with y'all for a few hours. You know, put it out there. I got the tweet out there. But what's going on, gang? How you feeling today? All right. What do I need to tap into? Is it the kick one? Yeah, man. Medicine is that work. Medicine is that work. Dr. Inky be up there dropping just gem after gem like it's nothing. Yeah. And I ain't gonna lie, y'all. When it comes to like some of the formal marketing and stuff like that, I'm not that great at it, I'll be honest. But I am getting better. And so letting everybody know my times and all of that, you know. But make sure y'all retweeting. You know what I'm saying? Let's see. What we gonna do is, hold on. I said we were gonna go over the communism video. Oh. And that's what we gonna do. So we gonna pull it up on the Patreon. You know. Pull it up on the Patreon. I feel like that was a good episode. I feel like it explains a lot. Truly, I do. How y'all doing, though? What's going on? It's Farm Monday. Well, Tuesday. Yo, that's super dope that y'all both on the Patreon and y'all both know each other. That's dope. But all right. So we're gonna go to the video. The relationship between black Americans and communism. Now we started on this yesterday. And I just, I opened up with the intro and it was just basically Angela Davis saying that when it comes to the liberation of black Americans or black people worldwide, according to them, the United States needed to usher in a socialist revolution. This is not a new idea. This is not something that they came up with necessarily, but there are people, that pushed this stuff before. And then in the thumbnail itself, we got a bunch of people that came before the Panthers. The Panthers are there, obviously. Stokely Carmichael and stuff. But then you also have, Peter H. Clark. Who else is this? I want to say that's Claude McKay. Oh, this one's Claude McKay. So yeah. All right. So we're going to get into it.
Well, I think it was very clear from the very beginning of the case that I was a communist, right, because I feel that this is the only way in which we are going to ultimately liberate ourselves as black people. I would not be in the Communist Party if I felt that the interests of the party were in any way opposite to the interests of black liberation.
What you're saying, I take it then, is that it is simply impossible to separate the activities of the Communist Party from the activities of the Black Liberation Movement. Is that what you're saying?
Well, certainly. I mean, otherwise, if, as I said before, if I felt that the interests of the party and black people conflicted in any way, I wouldn't be a member of it, because I'm interested first and foremost in the liberation of my people. And I feel that the policy of the party, as well as the practice, has been the only consistently correct approach to black liberation. See, I don't think that we can talk about black liberation without overturning the system, overturning the root cause for the oppression of black people. The only way we can do that, I feel, is through a socialist revolution.
One of the things that happens frequently when you're studying history are the times you find the stories intersect with one another. For instance, you'll notice people like Booker T. Washington frequently come up when dealing with black American economic, political, and cultural affairs. Whether it's a businessman in the South, a politician in the North, or a scholar in the Midwest, you'll often read of his involvement during his lifetime and sometimes even after. Which is true. That's one of the reasons why Booker T. Washington is so ill to me. Because you'll be reading about like a random entrepreneur somewhere in like Tallahassee or something like that, or New York or whatever, and like it'll be like, yeah, when I had correspondence with Booker T. Washington helped me get funding here. Booker T. Washington, was my mentor. Booker T. Washington gave me advice. I was a part of the National Negro Business League or something. Like his hands were like all over black American progress and achievement as it pertains to industriousness, professionalism, or entrepreneurship. And it's like, that's one of the reasons why he's like a main figure for me. And I think Bert said it yesterday. It's more about what you gravitate towards based upon your personality. And due to my personality being more of a Booker T. Washington, more of, being pragmatic and practical, somebody who can overstand a situation despite the high levels of emotionality that's surrounding things. And I did say yesterday that we were going to actually, you know what? We're going to do this video. We have time. But I do want to use this time or this stream to make sure that we actually do what I said I was going to do when it came down to Booker T. Washington's trial. Because I feel like that's necessary. So we're going to do that first. So, hold on. Can make sure that all the way tapped in. Make sure I'm all the way tapped in. All right. So what we gonna do? We gonna pull up the Atlanta Exposition speech of 1895. This speech, really pretty much, I guess, cemented his haters. And in their belief that he was like an accommodationist, he was, hindering progress. We're gonna go over it, and then we're gonna actually dissect what he was saying. So I'm trying to find a nice PDF of it. You dig? There we go. This looks primary enough. Let's see. Yeah. But I appreciate the source for sure. So it's Mr. Washington's address. So we'll keep this one. But I do want to just keep it simple and just talk about the more controversial parts of it, because he said a lot, but we want to keep it condensed. So what would be a good one? Let's see if this one's it. It's probably the same thing I just clicked in. Okay. 1908 recreation. All right. Let's see. I just want the actual speech. Yeah, no, this is too much. Let's see what the... I think this is it. We could just rock here. Okay. This is fine. We can do this one. This is the best source anyway. So, the Atlanta Exposition speech, which was then called the Atlanta Compromise, and it was pejoratively called this by his detractors, and it was basically saying that we are not in pursuit of any type of race dominance in this country. We are more focused on economics than politics. Now, I don't fully agree with that, but I do understand what Booker T was talking about. You know what I'm saying? Like at the time, the fears of the white Southerner was what they called Negro rule or Negro domination. And that was causing a lot of tumultuous responses and reactions, overreactions, paranoia, just doing a whole bunch of just ridiculousness in the name of wanting to preserve this level of rule or domination in the country. And Booker T. Washington overstood the situation, and instead of confronting those fears in a way that would make it worse, he confronted them being like, yo, listen, relax. Black people are not here to dominate or rule you. Black people want to be able to grow, be prosperous in their own communities. Because that was another part of it. The whole, he's not really worried about integration like that. And when he did speak on integration, he spoke upon like being separate but equal, essentially. And of course, when you have after the speech was had you had white people that didn't agree or didn't want to cooperate and stuff like that. So based upon these people's inability or unwillingness to participate, they threw out the entire message or throughout the entire speech as a failure, and that's just incorrect. So the entire point of the Atlanta exposition was to make sure that black people stayed in the South and built in the South, because he knew that was prime real estate. He knew that the skills that he's pushing, the vocational and industrial skills, were always going to pay them and always allow them to grow and prosper. And he also knew that not every white person was racist. So based upon his experiences and the way he's traveling throughout the country, he is interfacing with, good faith white people or allied white people or whatnot. And he's also helping good faith black Americans and industrious and entrepreneurial black Americans to grow and develop. So while we can just point at all of the times that a white person didn't cooperate with Booker T. Washington as an example of a failure and we shouldn't listen to it, or we should now pejoratively call this speech a compromise, you also fail to realize all of the successes that went along with this strategy. And one of the things that I've noticed when it came to Booker T. Washington, he wasn't so emotional about things when it came down to race relations. He was very stoic and pragmatic when it came to it. He was not sitting here trying to force the, white people to like us. He understood that these prejudices and stuff like that exist, but he also understood the practicality of just having skills, the practicality of being able to, build your own homes, build your own towns, be self-sufficient, understanding the powers of group economics and business. Like, having all of these skills will supersede any and all obstacles that you will be going through. And it's a fact because it was shown to be true. Okay. The South isn't, late 19th century Southern America anymore. You dig what I'm saying? Things have changed. So we're going to read the speech. We're going to read the speech and we're going to see what Booker T. Washington is saying. Because I think a lot of people just got told that Booker T. Washington had this speech in Atlanta in 1895 where he was pretty much being an accommodationist and an assimilationist. And that's just not true. You dig what I'm saying? It's way more to it. It's a lot of information here. And I want to see how you guys feel about it. And then we'll get to the communism video. All right. So it says, Mr. President and gentlemen of the board of directors and citizens, 1/3 of the population of the South is of Negro race. No enterprise seeking the material, civil, or moral welfare of this section can disregard this element of our population and reach the highest success. But I convey to you, Mr. President and directors, the sentiment of the masses of my race when I say that in no way have the value and manhood of the American Negro have been more fittingly and generously recognized than by the managers of this magnificent exposition at every stage of its progress. It is a recognition that will do more to cement the friendship of the two races than any occurrence since the dawn of our freedom. So again, mutual benefit. Mutual benefit. Not only this, but the opportunity here afforded will awaken among us a new era of industrial progress. Ignorant and inexperienced, it is not strange that in the first years of our new life, we began at the top instead of at the bottom. That a seat in Congress or a state legislature was more sought than real estate or industrial skill. That the political convention or stump speaking had more attractions than starting a dairy farm or a truck garden. So again, what a lot of people don't like about this is they compartmentalize it and say, oh, we can walk and chew gum at the same time. Granted, for sure. And that's where I agree. On the other hand, though, Booker T. Washington is not speaking from a privileged standpoint, at least not in the name of the people that he's speaking about. Booker T. Washington at this point, I could say, he earned whatever privileges he got, but he was privileged nonetheless because he was popular. People, went to go hear him speak. He had all these connections. He did a lot. So with that in mind, I do think that he was still thinking for the 90%. At this time, over 90% of black Americans lived in the South. And he's saying, yo, when it comes down to what's most important for you right now, okay, or what's most important for us right now is to be able to lock in on our industrial and vocational skills first and foremost. That should be the foundation. He's not saying that politics are not important at all, but he is saying that it's less important. Okay, he is saying that politics are less important than these skills. So we're going to get into his strategy or what his ideas are. But I wanted to make that clear, because this is another thing that people misconstrue. He's essentially saying, like, yo, right now we need to be focusing on our industrial and vocational skills. We need to get that up. Then we can worry about politics. Now, where I disagree is, what I was saying earlier, you can do both. But when it comes down to the average person, are we going to have a community of, congressmen, or we're going to have a community of artisans, a community of industrial workers? Like it's only but so many people that can be elected into office from Black America, period. So of the people who are not going to be elected into offices, what of them? And that's what he's speaking to here. So he gives a story. If you've read this speech like I have, then you're familiar with it. And he says, a ship lost at sea for many days suddenly sighted a friendly vessel. From the mast of the unfortunate vessel was a signal: water, water, we die of thirst. The answer from the friendly vessel at once came back: cast down your buckets where you are. A second time the signal, water, water, send us water, ran up from the distressed vessel and was answered: cast down your bucket where you are. And a third and fourth signal for water was answered: cast down your buckets where you are. The captain of the distressed vessel, at last heeding the injunction, cast down his bucket, and it came up full of fresh, sparkling water from the mouth of the Amazon River. To those of my race who depend on bettering their condition in a foreign land, or who underestimate the importance of cultivating friendly relations with the southern white man, who is their next door neighbor, I would say, cast down your bucket where you are. Cast it down in making friends in every manly way of the people of all races by whom we are surrounded. Again, he's saying here, yo, instead of fleeing to another country, instead of leaving where you are, all of the solutions that you are looking for are right under your feet. They're right where you are. Now, he is blatantly saying, yo, make friends with white people. Now, he also makes the caveat in saying manly, in every manly way. And again, this goes back to the mutual benefit. You don't necessarily have to be my friend off the basis of you just needing to recognize, my humanity or whatever. That's cool, but the friendliness comes from a mutual benefit. So either you have a skill that I'm willing to pay for, or I have a skill that you're willing to pay for, or there's a goods and service exchange between us that will allow us to come to terms, a mutual beneficial term that we can both agree upon. Through that agreement and through that mutual beneficial relationship that we have, we will become more friendly. We will be open to interacting with each other more and more based upon the manly terms. I think it's different than what we got in the 50s and 60s, which was government mandated. You have to, coexist with each other. You have to be able to live amongst each other. You have to, do all of these things because everybody's a little apprehensive. So Booker T is coming in the middle being like, yo, listen, You need to understand each other. We don't have to, like each other like your best friends, but also you need to understand and respect each other's humanity at the very least. And that's what he's saying here, right? So he goes on to say, cast it down in agriculture, mechanics, and commerce, and domestic service, and in the professions. So he's covering the entire gamut. He's talking about vocation. He's talking about industriousness. He's talking about service work. He's also, talking about, other professions, like I would have to assume doctors, lawyers, these types of professions. And in this connection, it is well to bear in mind that whatever other sins the South may be called to bear when it comes to business, pure and simple, it is in the South that the Negro is given a man's chance in the commercial world, and in nothing is the exposition more eloquent than in emphasizing this chance. Our greatest danger is that in the great leap from slavery to freedom, we may overlook the fact that the masses of us are to live by the productions of our hands and fail to keep in mind that we shall prosper in proportion as we learn to dignify and glorify common labor and put brains and skill into the common occupations of life. Shall prosper in proportion as we learn to draw the line between superficial and the substantial, the ornamental gewgaws of life and the useful. No race can prosper till it learns that there is much dignity in tilling a field as in writing a poem. It is at the bottom of life we must begin, and not at the top, nor should we permit our grievances to overshadow our opportunities. Again, keeping it funky. Now, 21st century, my contemporaries, they're reading this and they're getting offended. It's not computing with them, right? Because he's saying things like, yo, there should be pride in your service work and in being service providers, right? But then when it comes down to the 20, because they're looking at it as being subservient to white people. That's pretty much all they're framing it as, because again, the way that your mind is shaped when talking about history, it's less nuance, it's less objectivity, it's more subjectivity as it pertains to race relations. So despite that there's written documented record of the different varying levels of race relations throughout the South, throughout the country period, they're going to paint it with broad strokes. We know this, but he's letting everybody know here, yo, listen, it doesn't make any sense to put the cart before the horse. What is all of, your education, your intellectualism going to bring if you don't know how to build or create anything? It's dope that you're a philosopher. It's dope that you write poems. It's dope that you are into the arts and all that other stuff. But what skills do you have? What skills do you actually have to offer the world outside of your artistic expression? And that's what Booker T. Washington is saying here. And he's acknowledging, he says, when you say whatever other sins of the South may be called to bear when it comes to business, pure and simple, it is in the South that the Negro is given a man's chance in the commercial world. So as somebody who was a slave, came up, he's still looking at the landscape and being like, yo, this area is going to be the biggest region for opportunity commercially, for Black Americans. He's there. He's literally on the ground in the South. He's successful. He understands the landscape here, and he's letting everybody know, like, yo, dog, listen to me. You do not have to leave the South to be able to be prosperous. What I think about when I think of this speech, it's like when your homie or somebody that care about you is giving you game to not trick you off the street. Like, there are external forces. There are other people out there that are trying to trick you out your spot. They're trying to trick you out of the South. They're trying to get you to get up out of it, out of the South to where they can develop. So they can build and they can do all of the things. So he's telling them, yo, cast down your buckets. But of course, contemporary, history tells you that the Great Migration's main motivator was the lynchings, was the racism and oppression. The main driver for the Great Migration was economics, like most things. It was economics. People down south were hearing success stories of their friends, family, and other people in newspapers and stuff like that being successful up north. You had newspapers like the Chicago Defender writing articles, letting them know about all of these different success stories. And then you'll have people writing to newspapers like the Chicago Defender and letting you know why they're interested in moving up. I remember I was reading a whole bunch of entries and they were just saying, yo, I hear that wages are better, or I hear that working conditions are better, or I hear that, living conditions or whatever it is better as far as economics. That's what they were talking about. They mentioned racism and stuff like that. They'll have it in their notes being like, the Ofays or these white people or, down here doing whatever. But it was mainly the economics that drove them up north. You dig what I'm saying? There was a infestation of the boll weevil, I want to call it, which, attacked a whole bunch of crops. So now we're dealing with drought conditions in certain parts of the South. So there were economic reasons. And Booker T understood this. Booker T, while addressing, white people in the crowd, this was also more so for his people. It was for Black American Southerners. And this is something that I think people don't understand about Booker T. Washington. Booker T. Washington, you're not going to find that burn it all down revolutionary spirit in Booker T. Washington. And because you don't find that in his doctrine, a lot of people just call it like placating, assimilation, and accommodation. Is because he wasn't trying to burn the entire system down. That's the reason why when it comes to our contemporaries like millennials, they hold the Black Panthers so high, because the Black Panthers were open and honest about them wanting to dismantle the entire system to be able to forge Black liberation on. To be able to bring on Black liberation, we got to tear it all down. The tear it all down revolutionary model is fairly new. Now, of course, people will talk about like slave rebellions and stuff like that. I think that's different. I understand the parallels that these slaves were living under a system that was oppressive and exploitive to them. And I even understand the extension of the capitalism that they would attach to it, obviously. And them burning down those plantations and rebelling and, running away and all of that other stuff. I think that's different than 20th century America. Okay, we have over 200 million people. We have livelihoods, Black livelihoods, that will be uprooted based upon your doctrine. You have to understand that there were people who disagree with Martin Luther King and thought he was doing too much. They believed he had communist, ties, and that he was pushing communism in different ways. There were plenty of Black people who disagreed with the civil rights movement, just like there are plenty of people today, or Black people today, who disagree with the Black Lives Matter movement, me being one of them. So imagine those people hearing a bunch of young people in their 20s talking about we need to usher in a socialist revolution in order for us to see Black liberation. These are people who have savings. These are people who own their homes. These are people who own businesses. These are people who employ people. Like, you want these people to get on board with your economic and political model, and it's not sufficient to the lifestyle that they're living now. And so we have, of course, because of how active they were, because of how boisterous they were, because of how anti-imperialism, anti-capitalism, anti-American in a lot of ways they were, we hold them high as our revolutionary, ancestors. And they were revolutionaries. However, when we're talking about results, and we're talking about net positive, net negative results, I can appreciate the Black Panther Party for all that they did as far as the programs and the initiatives and how they looked out for their community. But I am never going to get on board with ushering in a socialist regime. I'm just not. It's not going to work. It hasn't worked. Communism, like I said last night, has killed over 100 million people. And it's not to say that capitalism doesn't have blood on its hands. Obviously it does. But when we're talking about net negatives and net positives, Black capitalism or capitalism overall has pulled more black people out of poverty than any other economic model. Black Americans, because of capitalism, are the richest black population in the world. In the world, because of this. So when I see examples like we talk about here, S.B. Fuller, S.D. Redmond, Annie Turnbull Malone, you name them, their stories would not have existed under socialism or communism. So when it's time now to read a black man who is successful, again, these people that we get told are Uncle Toms and sellouts and all this other stuff, first of all, I don't ever see any instances of selling out when it comes to these people. But I do see them using all of their power, all of their influence, all of their wealth to be able to invest in the communities that they're talking to. So while Booker T. Washington is telling black Americans to stay in the South, cast down your buckets, he also is building Tuskegee. He's also hiring black men and women to do particular jobs to earn a living for themselves. He's teaching these people skills that are going to allow them to feed themselves for the rest of their lives. It's not like he's giving a whole bunch of speeches and not putting any action behind it. So to disregard what he has to say based upon, it doesn't really jive with your sensibilities. It doesn't make any sense because he is going to have the more pragmatic and the more practical approach to this stuff. He doesn't want to burn the system down. And we have to stop thinking that in order for you to be pro-black, in order for you to want better for black Americans, that you need to burn down the entire system. I think that's short-sighted. Nobody thinks about the aftermath. After the storm has passed, all of the rubble, all of the smoke, and all of that stuff is cleared. Well, the rubble is not clear, but the smoke is cleared. And all you have is rubble. And all you have are your wits. All you have is your neighbor. How many of these people can you honestly say are going to help you build something? They just watched you and participated in destruction. How are you so sure that they're going to help you build? How are you so sure that the people that you just took over the country with are not going to overthrow you? How do you know that the next regime won't be, revolutionized and radicalized and then go after you? And now we're going to go to something else, another economic model. So now we have generations of us trying to find the best economic model, as opposed to looking at the results of these economic models in practice. And we can confidently say that capitalism has rose more black people out of poverty than any other economic model in the world. In the world. Okay? Black Americans spend over $1 trillion, almost $2 trillion a year. You don't get that without capitalism. And there are going to be people who have their critiques and all of that stuff about capitalism. And you're fine to have it. But I promise you, none of the things that you enjoy today, as far as material goods and even services that you have, that Uber Eats or whatever it is, you do not get all these things without the motivation for profit. You just don't. Altruism and all of that other stuff, that's cool, but that only comes from a good place when a person has excess. Okay? There are going to be other people who try to push this stuff for ulterior motives. And then you get caught again in the blender. You get tricked off the street. And now you dealing with, famine. Now you're dealing with famine. So Booker T. Washington, was not a revolutionary in the sense that he wants to, burn it all down. But he's revolutionary in thought, to where it's like, listen, I know what the real solution should be. And it's you being as industrious, having all of these vocational skills, you being commercially successful, you being entrepreneurs, you being professionals, you getting into all of these different trades, making a living for yourself, building yourself up, building your home up, building your community up, become of good use to the world, no matter the race. And then these things will naturally take course. Because, again, if we're going to speak objectively about it, you're going to have a section that hates black people, a section that actually deals with black people in good faith, and then you'll also have a section of people who are indifferent, don't really care either way. Long as they don't infringe on me, I won't infringe on them. I'm not a huge friend to the black man, but I don't hate him either. That's going to be the main three groups that you're dealing with when it comes to race relations. The people that hate you, make sure you defend yourself against them. You really can't do much to try to convince them or anything like that. Now you hold them accountable lawfully, legally. If they commit a crime against you, if they terrorize you, then you have to, first of all, defend yourself first and foremost. At all times, defend yourself. But when we're talking about the legality and the laws and all other stuff, that's where, we need to be making sure the government is upholding the Constitution in that regard. That's a fact. When it comes to the people that rock with you, you already know, just do good business and those relationships will flourish. When it comes to the indifferent people, they'll be influenced by either side based upon whatever they experience when it comes to you. That's how that goes. I feel like that's just objective enough. That's human nature enough. So that's what Booker T. Washington is saying. He understands the reality of it. So yeah, his whole point is like, forget all the pageantry, forget all the superficial stuff that don't mean anything. Let's get to the nitty gritty. That way, once we set the foundation, we can build on top of that. Once we have a significant amount of our population in the trades, once we have a significant population of our people, in professional fields and agricultural and all of these mechanics and all this other stuff. Now we got a bunch of engineers, we got a bunch of farmers, we got a bunch of doctors and lawyers and all of that other stuff. We have all of these different people. Now we can focus on running for office, governor this, mayor that, or whatever it is. All right. To those of the white race who look to the incoming of those of foreign birth and strange tongue and habits for the prosperity of the South, where I permitted, I would repeat what I say to my own race: cast down your bucket where you are. Cast it down among the 8 million Negroes whose habits whose fidelity and love you have tested in days when you have proved treacherous. When to have proved treacherous meant the ruin of your firesides. Cast down your bucket among these people who have, without strikes and labor wars, tilled your fields, cleared your forests, builded your railroads and cities, and brought forth treasures from the bowels of the earth, and helped make possible this magnificent representation of the progress of the South. So he's letting the white people know, listen, we've been tilling this land for centuries. You have a better relation with us than any foreigner. We are American. That's what he's saying here. We are American. Again, you have a better understanding of the relationship you have with the black Southern American than you have with somebody who comes from another country who doesn't speak your language, who have, different cultures, different habits, and all this other stuff. You dig what I'm saying? And he's appealing to these people as well. Again, this is for the mutual benefit of both races. He understands. You got to understand that Booker T. Washington does have white people in his social circle. He does have white people that he can call on. I talk about it all the time as far as like Andrew Carnegie, John D. Rockefeller, and and such. He's built these relationships with these white people. And when you have strategic partnerships like this, you are going to want to, of course, share this game and being like, yo, you can have these strategic partnerships. Now, I ain't gonna lie. The whole, when you said showed love and all of that other stuff, like loyalty and love and I get it. You know, he's appealing to them and in their crowd and, you know, all of that other stuff. But again, it's the context of it. But yeah, all of the work that we did without strikes and labor wars, tilled your fields, cleared your forests, builded your railroads and cities, and brought forth treasures from the bowels of the earth. All right. Let's see. What else did he say? Casting down your bucket among my people, helping and encouraging them as you are doing on these grounds, and to educate of head, hand, and heart, you will find that they will buy your surplus land, make blossom the waste places in your fields, and run your factories. While doing this, you can be sure in the future, as in the past, that you and your families will be surrounded by the most patient, faithful, law-abiding, and unresentful people that the world has seen. As we have proved our loyalty to you in the past, in nursing your children, watching by the sick bed of your mothers and fathers, and often following them with tear-dimmed eyes to their graves. Let's see. So in the future, in our humble way, we shall stand by you with a devotion that no foreigner can approach, ready to lay down our lives. No foreigner can approach, ready to lay down our lives if need be in defense of yours, interlacing our industrial, commercial, civil, and religious life with yours in a way that shall make the interests of both races one. In all things that are purely social, now here it is, in all things that are purely social, we can be as separate as the fingers, yet one as the hand in all things essential to mutual progress. Again, taking the feelings out of it. Taking your emotions out of it. What Booker T. Washington's saying is the truth. Again, you may not like the wording, saying the words humble, saying that there's love and all this other stuff. But again, you have to understand that you got to read the room and you're speaking to who you're speaking to. This is another strategy that a lot of people don't like to have, is when you have to be able to know who you're speaking to as far as your audience. And you want to make sure that you get the results that you want based upon what you're saying. Now, Booker T. Washington, like a lot of people, my contemporaries, will hop on a microphone and being like, yo, you honkies need to do this, that, and the third. You white people need to do this, that, and the third. And if that's your approach, that's your approach. But practically, you'll get more bees with honey than oil. It is what it is. Because to address the crowd this way, right, it automatically makes the assumption that these people are staunch racists. And to make that assumption at a speech of a black man, and they're not throwing tomatoes at him, they're not trying to abuse him, they're listening intently on what he's saying, it'd be silly to just be like, all of you people in this crowd are racist and all of you need to change. Like, that's not a manly way of having a conversation. And that's what Booker T. Washington was talking about. It's not manly to go around leading with your emotions about stuff and how you feel about stuff. What are the facts on the ground? What's the pragmatic solution? What is the practical approach to this? Now, Booker T. Washington, he went in. And to be totally honest, is he wrong? Do we not have black military? Do we not have black National Guard? Do we not have, black police officers? Right now, he's already said this. This is what I'm saying. Y'all getting mad at Booker T. Washington, but everything he said has come to pass. We got interracial marriages and all of this shit now. You got literal black men and women who create families with other races, who create families with white people. That black father has to kill and die as a leader of his family, and he has a white woman at home. You still have to have your fatherly duties. That is one of the tenets of being a father and a husband, is that you have to be willing to kill and or die to protect your family. And when a black man gets with a white woman, that's what he's signing up to do. And when a black woman gets with a white man, that's what he's signing up to do for her. If you're going to follow the principles of what a man is, again, back to the manly way. So him saying this, did we not fight foreign? Did black military not go to Iraq? Did black military not fight in different wars? Did they not go to Vietnam? Did they not go to Germany? Did they not go to what was it? What was World War I for that? Damn it. Well, I know Germany was in World War I. But The black men were in all of the wars, including the Revolutionary War, including the Civil War. They were in all of the wars. And that's exactly what the black man did. So while you can, wince at the wording and saying like, yo, we'll stand, he says, we shall stand by you with a devotion that no foreigner can approach, ready to lay down our lives if need be in defense of yours, interlacing our industrial, commercial, civil, and religious life with yours in a way that shall make the interests of both races one. That's what happened. Not in, in the ways that you may be thinking about it or conceptualizing it, but in America now we are one this big melting pot, right? Now, of course, we're going to have our segregated areas as far as because we self-segregate or whatnot, but this eventually came to pass. You had a bunch of black military men defending the lives of white Americans, defending the lives of other black Americans, defending the lives of Americans in general. This is what happened. Ready to lay down their lives against a foreigner to protect and provide for America. That's what happened against foreigners. There is no defense or security for any of us except in the highest intelligence and development of all. If anywhere there are efforts tending to curtail the fullest growth of the Negro, let these efforts be turned into stimulating, encouraging, and making him the most useful and intelligent citizen. Efforts or means so invested will pay 1,000% interest. These efforts will be twice blessed, blessing him that gives and him that takes. There is no escape through there is no escape through law of man or God from the inevitable. The laws of changeless justice bind an oppressor with oppressed. And close as sin and suffering joined, we march to fate abreast. I don't get that. I'm not gonna like I do. Nearly 16 millions of hands will aid you in pulling the load upwards, or they will pull against you the load downwards. We shall constitute 1/3 and more of the ignorance of. We shall constitute 1/3 or more of the ignorance and crime of the South, or 1/3 its intelligence and progress. We shall contribute 1/3 to the business and industrial prosperity of the South, or we shall prove a veritable body of death, stagnating, depressing, retarding every effort to advance the body politic. Letting you know, like when it comes down to mutual progress, we can be a scourge to the community or the greater populace of America, or we can actually be the ones building, being constructive. There's a possibility that crime and all of that other stuff can happen. But when we're talking about what's possible as far as the positive effects, we can all actually work towards the positive or a mutual goal. And that's all it is. And what happens is the people who didn't agree with Booker T. Washington were able to get more shine, more light, more press, more media than the people who were. Gentlemen of the exposition, as we present to you our humble effort at an exposition of our progress, you must not expect overmuch. Starting 30 years ago with ownership here and there, and a few quilts and pumpkins and chickens, remember the path that has led from these to the inventions and production of agricultural implements, buggies, steam engines, newspapers, books, statuary, carvings, paintings. The management of drugstores and banks has not been trodden without contact with thorns and thistles. While we take pride in what we exhibit as a result of our independent efforts, we do not for a moment forget that our part in this exposition would fall far short of our expectations, but for the constant help that has come to our educational life, not only from the southern states, but especially from northern philanthropists who have made their gifts a constant stream of blessing and encouragement. See? Giving it up to, like I said, his affiliates, the people that work with him that are up north, Some of them white, some of them black. And then speaking on that, the wisest among my race understand that the agitation of questions of social equality is the extreme folly, and that progress in the enjoyment of all of the privileges that will come to us must be the result of severe and constant struggle rather than artificial forcing. This is what has been said for obviously decades, centuries. No race of the world is long in any degree ostracized. It is important and right that all privileges of these laws be ours, but it is vastly more important that we be prepared for the exercises of these privileges. The opportunity to earn $1 in a factory just now is worth infinitely more than the opportunity to spend $1 in an opera house. That's a bar. That's a bar. The opportunity to earn $1 in a factory just now is worth infinitely more than the opportunity to spend $1 in an opera house. In conclusion, may I repeat that nothing in 30 years has given us more hope and encouragement and has drawn us so near to you of the white race as this opportunity offered by the exposition. And here bending, as it were, over the altar that represents the results of the struggles of our race and mine, of your race and mine, both starting practically empty-handed 3 decades ago, I pledge that in your effort to work out the great and intricate problem which God has laid at the doors of the South, you shall have at all times the patient, sympathetic help of my race. Only let this be constantly in the mind that while from representations in these buildings of the product of field, of forest, of mine, of factory, letters, and art, much good will come, yet far above and beyond material benefits will be the higher good. Yet far above beyond material benefits will be that higher good that lets us pray God will come in a blotting out of sectional differences and racial animosities and suspicions, in determination to administer absolute justice in a willing obedience among all classes to the mandates of law. This coupled with our material prosperity, will bring into our beloved Southland a new heaven and a new earth. So that's the speech. That's the speech. I understand that when y'all hear this, it's like, oh, we're just, accepting our fate as black people. But that's not what he's saying. I get where the detractors come from. I understand them. I just disagree. I think it's a strategy. I think that he means everything that he's saying. I do think that he's optimistic, which I don't think is a bad thing. He's optimistic. As a man, I have experienced great allyship with white men and white women. Not every white man, not every white woman, but in my personal journey, I've had allies. I've had people who are willing to invest their money in what I got going on. I have people willing to, contribute and help and build with me. So I know that that's possible in my own life. I know that that's possible in the lives of people that I've helped. Now it's time to bring this to the people. And I want y'all to know that the people in the crowd were absolutely cheering. What? Anyway, they were absolutely cheering. Like he was met with thunderous applause after he said all of this. So it wasn't like the white people were just sitting in the crowd looking at him like this. So in the same way that he has a call to action for black people, first and foremost, he addresses his people first. He then addresses white people and said, this is my call to action for you. And after he did that, the white people cheered. It wasn't like they booed him. So obviously there are going to be some like minds in the crowd. There are going to be some people who are understanding of what Booker T. Washington is saying, and it makes sense for them to get behind it. It makes sense for them to get behind it. So again, if y'all understand Booker T. Washington as far as the strategist that he is, to go up there and to agitate, because that's what we have been taught historically is how you make change. You agitate and all that other stuff. And that has its place. That has its place. You want to make sure that you do the pragmatic, practical things first because they make the most sense. If you're being, accosted or affronted or abused or assaulted in any way, of course, you have to defend yourself and you have to agitate. Cool. But when we're talking about, we want solutions. We don't want any more bloodshed. We don't want any more, fighting and all this other shit. I don't want any more black people dying. You don't want any more white people dying. We don't want to have these race wars and all that other stuff. There is a way to coexist with each other without having to be the best of friends. Because he said it. Where did he say that? Right here. In all things that are purely social, we can be as separate as the fingers, yet one as the hand in all things essential to mutual progress. We don't have to be best friends. Okay? We don't have to be chums like that. However, for things that are going to be mutually beneficial for everybody, it would make sense for you to get on board with what I got going on. I think Booker T. Washington addressed the insecurities of both sides. The insecurities of black Americans at the time is that the work, the vocational, the industrial, the agricultural work was demeaning. It was beneath them. It was akin to slavery. It's, synonymous with slavery at this point. So he had to directly address that insecurity and say, hey, there's great pride in the services. There's great pride in tilling the land. There's great pride in being a mechanic. There's great pride in being in the trades. Do not get it misconstrued because as a slave, you worked these jobs for low pay, no pay. Understand the importance of these occupations outside of your, insecurities or emotions that you have attached to the work that you did. And this goes back to what Booker T. Washington was talking about as far as being free and being a slave. He said to be a slave is to be worked. To be free is having to work. And one of the things that he saw once once slavery was abolished is that little slave boys, because he was young at the time, so he would notice them first and foremost, that little boys who were once slaves and now free thought that they were free from having to do hard work at all. So this is what I mean about the historical context. Y'all are reading this in the 21st century thinking like this man is saying, accept your lot in life. You're always going to be under white people. But you are not understanding that he's speaking to a generation of black Americans who were freed from slavery, who needed to be reminded that, yes, you were exploited. You were, abused. You had all of these things, taken advantage of you on, for sure. But the nucleus of the work that you did is still going to be beneficial no matter what. Whether you were getting whipped to grow strawberries or not, you still need to understand that growing strawberries is a net thing. It's a net positive. It's a net good skill to have because you need to eat. You need to be able to feed yourself. So when it comes down to you building something, having the ability to build a house, build a school, build an establishment, a store, or whatever it is, understand that you may have done that for low pay, no pay for a white slave owner, but that skill that you have now you can charge for it now. And not only can you charge for it, you can use those skills to not only better yourself, but your fellow man, your community. So now you can build things for your people. Instead of it being associated with slavery solely, you can actually use that for your own benefit. And I want y'all to understand how important that is. Because many of these slaves coming off this plantation believed that the work that they were doing was It's only because of slavery that this work was important. That I'm simply doing this because the slave master or the slave owner told me to do this. You dig what I'm saying? Not only that, the little boys that Booker T. Washington was talking about, they saw little white boys not having to work. So of course they're looking at, that's a contemporary, even though they're different races, that's still their contemporary. And they're seeing little boys their age while they're tilling on the land, chilling, sipping lemonade in the shade, playing. They got new toys, they got new clothes, they're living it up. So people are not understanding the economic relationship. They understand the work relationship. You dig what I'm saying? And I'm not saying everybody, I'm just saying in general. And that's what Booker T. Washington was talking about, 30 years ago. A lot of us were ignorant. And again, we have at this point not accepted the autonomy and agency of our ancestors. So I know a lot of this stuff is jarring, but this is the reality that they were speaking in, that they were living in. The illiteracy rates of newly freed slaves was high. I don't think that's, a surprise to people. But when you have somebody who's more literate during this time, highlighting the fact that, 30 years ago, a lot of us couldn't read, people in the 21st century get offended. And that's all this is. What I saw was a lot of people in the mid to late 20th century reading these speeches or reading Booker T. Washington's sentiments and his remarks as it pertains to Black American progress, and they did not see all of this pride. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't all of this, bolstering of racial pride and, people just need to get with it and all this other stuff. It was like, no, the Black man and the Black woman have to work for their spot. They have to earn it. And when you read that, it's like, oh, how dare he say that? How dare he say that? Doesn't he know that they were dealing with slavery and all this other stuff? He was like, yes, I was a slave. But I still need to learn how to read. I still need to be able to build my own things. I still need to be able to create. Like, me going through slavery does not absolve me of having to make something of myself. Me going through slavery does not absolve my responsibility as a grown man. That's just the reality of the situation. It wasn't all of this emotion that was tied to it. It was pragmatism. It was being practical. It was just using your common sense. I want my people to have a place to live. I want my people to be able to flourish. So the only way that we're going to be able to do this is if we build, period. People don't understand that. So I've read this speech. You dig what I'm saying? I read this speech and I didn't see anything that was so egregious that we've written off Booker T. Washington as an accommodationist. Why? Because he said he wasn't worried about Congress or the state legislature. And he was more focused on vocation. He was more focused on commercial. He was more focused on professional work. That's insane. When right now, the type of what am I saying? Right now, it's not like every Black person is running for office. It's a very small population. It's a very small percentage of the Black population, the Black American population, that are into politics. There are always going to be more farmers, more workers, more people who are building things than there are politicians, no matter the race. John Glasgow says, is there someone today that has a similar type of influence as Booker T. Washington? And if so, who? Yeah, I would think so. I think Maj Touré. I think all of the people in my social circle. If you're thinking about, like, as far as like national, like being that guy like Booker T. Washington, no. I don't know of a single contemporary Black American who was on the cover of every, newspaper, who's getting all of this media coverage and is pushing vocational, industrial, and commercial work. I think Simone Bees, I shout her out all of the time. Shout out to Bees. I think Bees is doing, she's in that same vein. I think Bees is doing an amazing job. Bees has a yearly convention where she's getting mainly or predominantly young black Americans into government tech contracting. And the way that she's doing it, first of all, Booker T. Washington model, got to do it yourself first before you teach anybody else to do it. I told y'all, Booker T. Washington, he had strict rules when it came down to the National Negro Business League. You could not speak at the National Negro Business League if you didn't own a business, if you were not actively working in the field that you're speaking about. And that's what Bees did. Bees started, I want to say, in her teenage, very intentional about her education. She was been in tech since she was, I want to say 16, 17. I've been following her for years. I've been following her for the greater part of a decade. And watching her and her journey has been amazing. So I'm a big fan of hers. So if I had to say, without the press, without all of the, fanfare, because Bees has a large following, but we talking about Booker T. Washington. I would say Bees is up there. I would say Maj Touré is up there. I would say King Randall is up there. I think, of course, Hotep Nation is up there. But, before we get to tooting our own horn, I wanted to be, objective about people that I respect and that's doing the work. So, yeah, anybody who is walking the walk and then teaching that walk, teaching other people how to do that walk, I'm always going to have a hold in high regard. So Bees, Maj Touré, King Randall. There's a lot others too. I'm just, I'm drawing a blank on. But yeah, for sure. So shout out to Bees. Shout out to Maj for that. But yeah, y'all not going to sit here and try to shit on Booker T. Washington to me. It's dead. Especially over this one speech. There wasn't anything else. Because we can get into the Tuskegee machine and the gangster stuff that he was getting into. And this is what I'm saying. So back to my point. People don't understand the historical context of this speech. He's understanding the strategy. Y'all got to understand strategy, man. Y'all have to understand strategy. Once you go into these fields where you're given a call to action, or you are trying to solve, back then this was called the Negro problem. That's what they called it back then in the 19th century, all the way into the 20th century. Honestly, they had this continuous issue called the Negro problem. What are we to do with the Negro now that they're free, now that they're not slaves anymore? What are we going to do with the Negro? Okay, it was created by white people. And because black people know how to think for themselves, they were like, okay, well, these are our solutions. So this is around the time everybody's dealing with the Negro problem. So this is Booker T. Washington throwing his hat in the ring for pragmatic solutions based upon his experiences, the things that he's accomplished with his own works, and the partnerships, allyships, and partnerships and allyships that he's had with other races, mainly white people. Here's my prescription. And everybody was with it. But sadly, the W.E.B. Du Boises and, the William Monroe Trotters and, your up north black Americans who are your talented 10th and stuff like that, they were able to use this. They were able to use this speech as a way to spin the narrative on Booker T. Washington. Spin the narrative on him. So now they use this speech and they're telling everybody like, yo, Mr. Washington is placating to white people, blah, 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 all of this other stuff. Y'all need to follow our program. And this is my issue. This has always been my issue when we talk about the Booker T. Washington versus the Du Bois debate, right? This debate has been going on since they've been alive. Now, Booker T. Washington was a kingmaker. Okay? That's that. W.E.B. Du Bois wanted to be the king. And that's going to be the main differences in their approach. Booker T. Washington wanted to create leaders. I'm a leader. You know, I run all the things that I run. I'm the head of all of these different businesses, institutions, what have you. However, I am about teaching you how to fish. I don't want you to rely on me for the fish. Learn how to fish yourself, and that way you can be your own leader in your own family, in your own community, in your own city, state, or whatever. Use the principles, the work ethic, the values, and all of that stuff that I am sharing with you to be able to be a leader in your own life. Lead your own life. Be self-governing. Be self-sufficient. Be self-reliant. Use group economics. You dig what I'm saying? He's teaching people how to be self-sufficient, to not have to always rely on him. Now, when it comes down to, business opportunity and stuff like that, I talked about that in my other stream. Yes, there were plenty of times where black entrepreneurs were, writing Booker T. Washington up like, yo, fam, it'd be nice if we can get a $5,000 loan or a $5,000 grant to, help this school or help this bank or help this town or whatever it is. And Booker T. Washington being the conduit that he is between wealthy people up north and wealthy people in the South and, whoever, to the people that would need some of that wealth or, would use some of that wealth. He can write a letter and get fronted bread or get sent money by these wealthy Northerners, Southerners, or whoever, and to be able to invest in these black American institutions, these black American establishments. Again, strategy. On the other hand, you have Du Bois, and he's saying that we need a talented 10th. We need essentially a small microcosm of the black American community to pretty much be the leaders. To be the leaders. So for all things that you need for your progress, you need to come through us. Whether it be economic opportunity, cultural expression, political advancement, you funnel it through us. We'll funnel it up to the top, and then we'll make it work there. And what I say is, it's the middleman strategy. The middleman brings together the buyer and the seller and then makes money on the spread. So the buyer, is willing to, the seller is charging $100 for a particular good or service. The buyer is willing to pay, you tell the buyer, you've got the seller, then you tell the buyer, hey, this good or service is going to cost $110 or $120. The buyer gives you $110 or $120. You give the seller $100 and you keep the $10 to $20 on the spread. That's the model. That's the economic and political model of the talented 10th. That all of our achievements and all of that other stuff will be funneled through us. We'll be the public facing representative of black America. Now, I will say that there are some pros to that, right? But it's mostly cons. Like when you weigh the pros and cons, the cons outweigh it because now there's a higher propensity for the 90% to be forgotten because the 10% is going to continue to grow, right? There are going to be more and more people who you help, get into the 10%, right? But it's still going to remain 10%. It's still only going to remain a small, percentage of the people. So while there'll be some people that will move up from the 90 to the 10, right? Most people won't. That's how percentages and stuff works. It's the talented 10 for a reason. So you are now expecting 90% of the population to rely on y'all and only y'all for their prosperity, for their liberation. Instead of creating kings like Booker T. Washington was doing, they were the kings. Y'all come through us. And that's going to be the fundamental difference between the economic and political models of Booker T. Washington and Du Bois. And when you think about it, that sounds like to me a socialist revolution. That sounds like to me communism. That everything is owned by the state. The state is represents this much of the people, but they own everything. That's the same thing to me. And so when you look at the history of all of these things, they line up. Yeah, Booker T was a part of groups. He was a Prince Hall Freemason. It says, was Booker T part of any groups? I know intermingled with everyone freely. Yeah, he was a Prince Hall Freemason. He had his own spy ring that he created called the Tuskegee Machine. And I'm pretty sure that there was some other stuff that's, on the under that, we don't necessarily know about or whatnot. But at the end of the day, he was definitely a Prince Hall Freemason. And, it could be a positive or a negative depending on, what you're looking at or whatever. I see that there are people who, use their Freemasonry for evil, but are not also like in the communities that I grew up, they had, Prince Hall and Freemason lodges. I've seen them my whole life. Now, I don't know if these dudes were a part of some type of secret cabal to run America or whatnot, but like I've seen Freemasons my whole life. I've seen them. I didn't really, have any negative interfaces with them, but I have read the stories that y'all have read. I've read, the nefarious nature and the unseeing hand and all this other stuff, the hand behind the curtain and all the stuff when it comes to Freemasonry and the cabal and, all these secret societies and stuff like that. I've read the same things y'all read. But as far as in real life, the Freemasons that I've shaken hands with or talked to or whatever, like they just go to their meetings. They just go to their meetings, bro. So, and I don't attribute any malice or them being nefarious. When I studied Prince Hall, I didn't see anything that was super crazy. You know what I'm saying? He wanted to be a part of the Freemason Lodge. They wouldn't let him, as we know when it comes to that stuff. So he asked I want to say England to have his own lodge and stuff like that. Then he had the African Lodge 450. I know the numbers are 4, 9, and 5, but I don't know if it's 459 or 495 or something like that. But I know the African Lodge 495 or something like that. So yeah, he was a Freemason. He was a Freemason. And we talked about the Boule and the Black Greek organizations yesterday. But yeah. So it's like for me, y'all, like I really truly do not see the beef. I don't see the problem with Booker T. Washington saying the things that he was saying, especially for the time, and how this is somehow placating or playing into white supremacy. It's insane to me. It doesn't make any sense. So, as far as I'm concerned, retweet this and ask anybody what exactly did Booker T. Washington do? You dig what I'm saying? I want to know how, like, let me know how evil Booker T. Washington was. Because all I'm seeing is this man building, helping people, and making sure that Black America is on the right track. That's all I have seen. But you had people in my mentions talking about, they white people propped him up and all this other shit. It's like, what are you talking about? This motherfucker was a hero among Black Americans, Black people. Did he have white fans? For sure. He's speaking pragmatically. He's not sitting there talking about, every last one of you white people are racist and therefore it's fuck y'all and give us money. Straight up. So I want y'all to let me know. Scruggs, Glasgow, let me know exactly where, you know what I'm saying? I know y'all don't necessarily disagree, but I want to know, what's the beef? What is the beef with Booker T. Washington, son? Please let me know. Because he was more worried about making money than casting votes. Like, I get that. But that's one of the things he said. That's just one of the things he said. He was saying that we don't need to be putting the cart before the goddamn horse. We don't need to be putting the cart before the horse. Y'all sitting there worrying about liberal arts, or you're sitting there worrying about all of these degrees and different fields of work that don't pay that well, and only select few of black Americans can even get into it, and then ignoring all of the practical, all of the smart, all of the industrious, all of the commercial, all of the vocational trades that America needs to run. You cannot have a country without vocational trades. It is absolutely impossible to have a country without infrastructure. Now you're dealing with second and third world conditions at that point. When you don't have good, constant, consistent electricity. When you don't have constant, clean, consistent water flow. When you don't have structures, buildings, schools, businesses. When you don't have all of this stuff, then yeah, you don't need a carpenter. You don't need a welder. You don't need an electrician. But in civilized society, in modern civilizations, in order for you to survive and thrive, you need these fields. And now we're in a space where black Americans only make up 6% of the tradesmen in this country. 13% of the population, only 6% in trades. That is a problem, especially when all of this trade work was black work. All of it. Inherently. Yes, you had white architects, you had white farmers, you had white vocational workers. For sure. I'm not one of them stupid ass people that speaks in like ridiculous absolutes. But for the most part, speaking in general, especially with the founding of this country, especially with what this country's labor force was, it was all slave labor. The disproportionately slave labor. Millions of black people tilling the soil, building these institutions, building these buildings. Like, this is what they did. So again, I think it's more so the association and being able to pull at somebody's heartstrings. And that's what was happening. You had people like W.E.B. and them able to tell you, yo, you shouldn't feel this way, or you should feel this way. Feel this way. Booker T. Washington is like, yo, I get the feelings part of it, but you still need to get up and go to work, dog. You still need to get up and go to work. Now check this out. I'm a firm believer in everybody not going. Everybody can't go. And I'll give you a perfect example of that. I'll give you a perfect example. I have no beef. John Glasgow says, I have no beef with Booker T. He was a living example of John Maxwell leadership. Booker T is someone I push my son to read more about. For sure, man. For sure. Great dude. Great dude. Let's see. Because I know I spoke on it. So I'm just going to DM it to myself. I know trying to find it on Twitter.com is just going to be insane to do. But it was a story that I read. And y'all not going to necessarily like the book that it came out of, but, you know, a book is a book. You know what I'm saying? A book is a book. Damn, everybody going live right now. My man Torin hit me up. The good sis Jonay hit me up. I know Goldstein is doing his show. But I got to get my stuff off because I have to be disciplined and stream every day. I have to be disciplined and stream every day. And I ain't going to lie. Glasgow, Scruggs, Vincent, Sammy, y'all my day ones. Y'all my day ones for sure. I appreciate y'all. It is so crazy how time be flying on stream. Why are they doing this to me? I know I know I can find this tweet. Y'all, I'm telling y'all, man. The search the search function on Twitter is pissing me off, son. I'm trying to find it. I know I wrote it. It's ridiculous. Here we go. Alright. Sent it to myself. Let's go on over to the Twitter. Yeah, I still say Twitter. I will never say X. I still type in Twitter, all of that. It's still Twitter to me, dog. My internet, man. It's never this slow, y'all. I'm telling you, it's never this slow when I'm just sitting here just browsing the internet. But of course, now that I'm on stream, it takes forever. And it's just ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. But it's an interesting story. It's an interesting story, and I want to share it with y'all. To show y'all that at no point in Black American history were we all this one united front. There was always people that didn't want to do particular things, or they did want to do particular things that was not the best or in the best interest of themselves, let alone Black America. And I'm going to let y'all know. I'm going to show y'all exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah. Yo, I ain't going to lie, y'all. If y'all hear me like randomly bust out in a song or whatever, it's because I have been listening to Bossa Nova, which is it's Brazilian music. It's like jazz and samba infused. Like it's samba infused jazz or jazz infused samba. It's super dope. I can't pronounce any of the artists or the song titles, but the music is fire. I can tell you that. So here we go. All right. So I said, hopefully y'all can see this. I said, stop chasing racial uniformity. It has never existed in this country. Once you accept that there are people who legitimately do not want to advance themselves, you ironically become more optimistic. Find your tribe and build. Everybody can't go, and most of them don't want to. So, this is a story. Scruggs says, I just had my son check out a book from the library about him and put an order in for a copy of Up From Slavery. Absolutely. Get him in tune with the good booker. Get him in tune. All right. So this story says, it is said that an abolitionist society by a bribe of $3,000 induced the slave valet of Henry Clay to leave him and go north. The society thought that this large sum would be well spent in producing what would appear to be such a noteworthy example of dissatisfaction with the condition of slavery. Though the Negro accepted the money and left, he soon repented and returned to his master. Thereupon, Clay gave him $3,000, for the Negro had long since spent the bribe, telling him that when he had returned the sum to those who had tried to corrupt him, that he would be restored to his master's service. The money was given back. The money was given back as directed, and Clay then took the Negro back as his valet. Now, my first episode, I talked about slave rebellions. In one of the slave rebellions that I was talking about, I talked about how one of the slaves, I don't even think he was a house nigga, but one of the slaves snitched on the plot. That slave, was spared or whatnot. Everybody else was hung or whatever, or they did escape, whatever. But that snitching slave is not an anomaly. That wasn't an isolated incident. In every slave rebellion plot, there were black slaves that they could not tell these plots to, because those black slaves were going to rat. They were going to snitch. They were going to blow up the entire operation because they were indoctrinated, institutionalized, however you want to, frame it. But they were against slaves rebelling. They didn't think it was right. Now, you, the person who disagrees with Booker T. Washington, may view that slave like Booker T. Washington. Like, oh, don't rock the boat and all this other stuff. That's not what Booker T. Washington would stand for. But this story, okay, it speaks to a mind state. It speaks to a behavioral pattern. It also speaks to the fact that everybody is not like you, even though they look like you. Now, we toss around cliches like, skin folk ain't kinfolk or whatever the fuck. Like, we say this, but then we don't attribute this shit to the ancestors too. That there were slaves who did not want to leave that plantation. We talking about, like, we gonna have, Juneteenth is coming up this week. When that announcement in Galveston happened, right? Dude, I forgot his name, but one of the military men, forgot his rank and the name, but he stood out on his veranda, on the balcony, and was like, yo, my bad, y'all supposed to been free. Y'all finally free now. Obviously, most of them got the fuck up out of there. Celebrated, got off the plantation. But there was a significant percentage of slaves who stayed on the plantation. They stayed. A lot of them ran older and stuff like that. But even the slaves that were younger, that were under this influence, decided to stay on the plantation because at this point, they can get a little bit more money or more money period or money period. You dig? And they can work out terms. And I know y'all don't like to hear about benevolent slave owners and stuff like that. It's like hearing a good cop. You know what I'm saying? I get it, right? Because of the system in and of itself, to have a benevolent slave owner and all of that kind of means nothing. But it means a lot, though, historically. It does, because those slave owners be the ones that you could buy your freedom from much easier than these ones who was like, hell no, I'm not paying you anything and you're going to be a slave for the rest of your life. We're going to do all of this torturous, debaucherous stuff to you and all of that. Like, yo, that matters, yo. That matters. And I know it's minuscule to the contemporaries in the 21st century, but that shit meant a lot. There are slave narratives that I read that was like, yo, it was better to be a slave in like Virginia than South Carolina. You dig what I'm saying? Like the way that, Mississippi and South Carolinian slave plantations were ran, they were more brutal. Because you gotta understand that brutality is based upon the person. It's not like there's like a manual to slavery. Oh shit. Probably might be a manual to slavery. I gotta look it up now that piqued my interest. But when it comes to this, like, dog, the varying degrees, if you talk to men who've been in the system, like who've been to prison and they've been to like upstate, they've been to other states and all this other stuff, they'll tell you, the people who've been in prison for a long time, like they've done 10, 15, 20 years of their life in prison, they can tell you the different conditions of different prisons. Yo, this prison is better than that prison. This prison has, higher security, or this prison has better food. This prison has better staff. This prison, like, they have different varying degrees of quality, even though it is a prison. Now, you, as somebody that may be like anti-prison or whatever it is, and are just focusing on mass incarceration or whatever it is, you're going to just throw everything in one basket. But the prisoner, that means that means all the difference to them. There are men right now, I'm pretty sure women too, who are in a particular prison, and it's not even like they don't want to be in prison in the sense of like they don't think they did anything wrong, but they don't want to be in that prison. The food is terrible. The infrastructure of that building is terrible. So it's super cold in the winter, extremely hot in the summer. Plumbing is bad. bedding and all this other stuff is, got bed bugs in it. It's infested. It's bad for their allergies, bad for asthma and all that other stuff. They understand that they have 7 years left or 5 years left or 3 years left on their sentence. They understand that they have to do the time because they did the crime, but they would definitely want better facilities based upon the living conditions of these prisons. Now, if that's true in the 21st century as far as prisoners go, why wouldn't that be equally true from a slave who has been all over the South, been through different types of plantations and different treatments, and being like, yo, I would much rather be a slave at this plantation? Again, I'm only saying this because the ancestors did. They'll have different stories where they'll be like, yo, this slave owner that I had was super cool. I was able to go make my money on my own. I was able to, eat better. I was able to clothe myself. They paid me better. They have different experiences. It wasn't like, again, this broad stroke of history that y'all paint. It gets y'all upset, but this is the nuance that comes along with history. These are the conditions of man. That's just what it is. You have to accept it. And this slave right here, even despite having $3,000 in his pocket, adjusted for inflation, that's gotta be crazy amount, because this is still the 19th century. Like, slavery is still going on, and he has $3,000, and the dude, he spent it, but he would much rather be a slave. So when it comes down to telling him, yo, you need to be independent, critically thinking, you need to learn how to read, you need to learn how to write, you need to learn how to do math, you need to learn how to be industrious for yourself, take care of yourself, take care of your own family and all that other stuff, he's not going to hear what the hell you got to say. He don't give a good goddamn about all of that stuff. So the whole point of this tweet was to let people know, like, yo, dog, you need to find your tribe instead of trying to get blood out of a stone. Because what's going to happen is you're either going to get frustrated and abandon them and stop rocking with them, or you're going to become them. I remember when I had my podcast years and years ago. Shout out to the podcast. It was super dope. I didn't do anything. I didn't do topical, current event stuff like that. In my little mini episodes I did, but for my actual, episodes, they were themed. And I remember I did one about the relationship between family and drugs, love and drugs. So in the episode, I interviewed a bunch of drug dealers, like in the middle of them selling drugs in Philly. I interviewed a young lady whose father was addicted to cocaine, and how that affected her as a child, and how that affects her growing up, and how she loves and how she understands addiction and all this other stuff. It was super super powerful. And then I also interviewed a couple who were crackheads, Shiz and Stank. I interviewed Shiz and Stank. Shiz, dude got to be like 6'2", wear glasses, super cool dude. He's addicted to crack. Stank, she a short woman. She got to be like 5'1", 5'2", little skinny thing. And they've been a couple for however many years and years and years. They together, off the books, they make anywhere between like $200,000 to $300,000 a year based upon the odd jobs that they do throughout the year. They just smoke all of it on crack. They spend most of it on crack. I say all that to say, I asked them about what was it like when your family first realized that you guys were addicted to crack. And of course, they both had their stories and stuff like that. Shiz told me that he started smoking crack because he wanted to impress a girl. Her whole thing was like, if you like me, then you will try this drug. He tried it, he liked it, and he never stopped smoking it. Stank, she was saying that her family did their best. They pulled out all of the stops. They pulled out all of the stops to get her to kick the drug. Sent her to rehab, therapy, surrounded her with love, did all the things, bought her new clothes, told her how, beautiful she was, and, all of the things that a loving family would do to be able to bring their baby back from the grasp of drugs. And what Stank realized was that wasn't what she wanted. She wanted to get high. She understood fully that she had a loving family and all of that, and she still went into her granny's purse and stole money. Could have asked for it, but after a while of asking for the money, they're gonna tell her, like, listen, we love you. You don't have to do this. Gonna hit her with the lecture and all of that moralizing. She wasn't trying to hear that, so she would rather rob her granny, rather steal from her mother and her sisters or whoever else to get her next high. So of course that creates the distrust. But she said to me something that always stuck with me. She was like, yo, you'll sooner become a crackhead. You'll sooner become a crackhead than I would get sober if you were to spend every day with me to try to get me to quit. You would sooner try crack than I would try not to smoke. And when she said that to me, I was like, damn, that's deep. That my will to do what I want to do, no matter how destructive it is stronger than your will for wanting better for me. And the strength of my will negatively influence you because you love me so much. Because you love me so much, you would, in your heart, acquiesce to my addiction and my lifestyle before I would acquiesce to yours. Because you're the one that's the bleeding heart. You the one that's doing any and everything to get me to change my behavior. And all I'm doing is simply resisting by doing what I want to do. And you love me and the idea of me being clean off of drugs more than I love you and the idea of being an addict. I probably said that backwards, but you get what I'm saying. It was more important to me to get high than it is for you to get me clean. So when I see, let's just use black people since we're talking about black history. When I see black people who are hell bent on destruction, degeneracy, backwards thinking, regression and all that other stuff, I accept that's a reality. Now, I also understand that there is a level of being induced and indoctrinated into this type of stuff. You dig what I'm saying? I do understand that there are external things or external parties or external, entities that will push a particular group into a negative lifestyle. I get that. I understand that. Flooding the neighborhood with drugs and all this other stuff, right? But in that same regard, there are going to be people who still chose not to do the drug, who chose not to succumb to the, induced or indoctrinated destruction. That's just what it is. You see what I'm saying? So when it comes down to just mindset, y'all, when it comes down to doing things, saying things, and believing things and all that other stuff, you really just have to find your tribe. You have to find the people that think like you. You have to find the people that move like you. That way you're not sitting there trying to worry about the foundations again. Like, are you sure? Like, we just want to make sure you believe in group economics and all that stuff. You need to not have to worry about the foundations of your morals, values, core beliefs, things like that. Those need to align. Those always need to align because that's when things get wacky. That's when things get wacky. As a matter of fact, who was that? Was that Rebecca? I don't know if that was Rebecca. It could have been, but I don't think so. No, it wasn't Rebecca Crumpley. It was another book where basically he was talking about parenting. It was called Domestic Education. You got to find it. But in the book, Domestic Education, he was saying that essentially parents are not allowed to disagree on fundamentals. Now, this book is rooted in Christianity, like heavy Christianity, Heavy, heavy, heavy. However, he was saying that, parents are not allowed to be disagreeing. Yep, it's a treatise on domestic education by Reverend Daniel A. Payne. If you're not familiar with Daniel Payne, get familiar with him. And let's see what he said, because he was talking about like the different tenets. What did he call them? Training of children. He said something about, like, it was a name that he gave them. But anyway, where is it? I'm scrolling through the book right now. That's all. But he was basically saying that, conditions. The conditions of successful training. Or the conditions of successful child training. All right. Right. So this is what he had to say. He says, whether they be parents or guardians, the first condition of successful training is unity in respect to the order, law, and government of the household. There must be unity on the part of the parents or guardians of a child. There must be no dissension, no antagonism between them. For if such a thing as disagreement or antagonism exists in the family, no child can be trained under the ideas, principles, and sentiments involved in the divine command. So, I say that to say, when it comes down to finding your tribe, I'm not saying that you have to be as strict as Reverend Payne here and saying that you can't have any disagreements, but you definitely don't want to be disagreeing on your core morals, values, beliefs, ethics, and things like that. You don't want to be disagreeing on that. It's a recipe for disaster, because who you are, not what you are, is now you need to be able to do, your own self-analyzation and being able to figure out if what you are doing for your own self is actually productive for yourself. Like Shiz and Stank understood that what she was doing was wrong, but she liked the way it felt. She liked the way it made her feel. So I'm going to keep delving into the drugs. If that's how you are when it comes to your lifestyle, and you fully understand that this stuff is detrimental and destructive to you, but you still want to do it because of how it makes you feel, the dopamine that it, releases in your brain and all of that, by all means, you are an adult. You are an adult. However, if you are under the impression that what you're doing is actually a good thing, then you need to check yourself. And that's just what it is. So, we can get back to the communism video. So, like I said, I want y'all, we're going to try it again. I want to give people, an opportunity to say what they want to say about Booker T. Washington, but I just don't see it. I don't see it. He needed to work on one area. Like I said, the one critique that I'll give him is that, you can't throw politics out completely. And he wasn't. He's at a point now where it's like, I don't really care. I understand, but right now we have bigger fish to fry. That's it. We got bigger fish to fry, and based upon that bigger fish, we'll get to the politics later. I personally believe, but again, I'm living in the 21st century, which is not really that, big of a deal. But, I believe that, again, we can walk and chew gum. We can do both, especially because of the levels of work is so disproportionate. Like, to get into politics and stuff like that, it takes a smaller amount of people, but we just need, have people behind it and backing it and stuff like that. And I think that because he stayed in his lane, he stayed in his vocational, industrious, economic bag. That's what his expertise was in. Being able to build. That's his bag. He wasn't proficient in politics. So for me, I've always said we should have been able to combine efforts. Now, there was a time where Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. Du Bois, they did agree and they did work together here and there. Like, there's mad books There's mad books where it's like Booker T. Washington did the foreword of the book, and W.E.B. Du Bois like edited it and stuff like that, or they worked together on something. I told y'all about the 1900 Paris Exposition. They worked on that together. Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. Du Bois worked together, and I ain't gonna hold you. I feel like, this is just my feeling here, I feel like Black America overall would have fared better with them as allies than them as rivals. Because sometimes there's benefit in rivalry. I'm not going to lie. Right? So it's like I tell you about William M. Trotter, right? William M. Trotter was one of the talented 10th, essentially. And he interrupted one of Booker T. Washington's speeches in Boston. I want to say in like 1903. I want to say 1903 or 1913. Either way. He interrupted a speech that Booker T. Washington was doing at a church. Him and like 9 of his buddies. So 10 dudes randomly run into this church and start shouting him down. No different than when like y'all see that stuff happen in press conferences and stuff like that, where somebody will come in and interrupt the whole entire session and start asking a bunch of inflammatory questions. That's what William M. Trotter did, right? So in response, okay, the police came, they carried them, escorted them out there, whatever. But Booker T. Washington locked that nigga up for 30 days. For disorderly conduct. Got that nigga locked up. Using the Tuskegee machine. You dig what I'm saying? So, when I'm looking at W.E.B. and Booker T, it's like, yo, you are a part of the elites of Black America. Booker T. Washington has experience with elites. When are we starting the book club? What's today? You know what? We're gonna start the book club. What's today? Tuesday. 2 days from now will be Thursday. How about we start the book club on Juneteenth? How y'all feel about that? How y'all feel about starting the book club on Juneteenth? Let me know. Let me know how y'all feel about the starting the book club on Juneteenth. The first book is going to be The Negro in Business. The first book is going to be The Negro in Business. Yo, speaking of, I want to let y'all know, as somebody who is streaming a lot more and my memory is what it is, I kind of see why Dr. Umar be repeating himself over and over again. Real rap, son. Like, I be forgetting. So Juneteenth for the book club. I think that'll be dope. Reading about a bunch of industrious Black people. I'm letting y'all know now, all of the book club streams will be on Patreon. They will not be readily available on YouTube. My Patreon subscribers are extremely loyal and patient with me, and I'm going to make sure that we do the book club streams on Patreon. So if you want to be a part of the book club, make sure you are subscribing to the Patreon. Patreon.com/Hotep History. Patreon.com/Hotep History. You're going to do that exclusively for the Patreon subscribers. And I'm letting y'all know there will be questions. It's not going to be a quiz, but I want you guys engaged in the comments. I want you guys to be enriched by these books. Okay? We are going to stick to, nonfiction books, unless there's like, a fiction that we got to get into or whatever. But no, we are going to be doing a lot of researching and studying together. And I want y'all to learn this stuff. You dig what I'm saying? It's good to have it as entertainment. And I'm doing this to, edutain you. That's what it is. I love edutainment. Like, my most mind-numbing programming that I watch is like my man Casual Geographic. And it's not mind-numbing at all. I'm learning something about an animal species. I watch Tier Zoo. You dig what I'm saying? Like, I don't watch anything that doesn't edutain me in some way. I think the lowest that I would say is maybe like Here and there, I'll watch like American Dad or Family Guy or something like that. But I don't watch that as much as I used to because I don't have cable anymore. I just have the internet. So outside of like, one of them 3-hour, American Dad videos that be on YouTube and stuff like that, I really don't be tapping into nothing like that. You have your series here and there, like Tires. I watch that. Shane Gillis, right? But 98% of the things that I watch are educating and entertaining. That's just what I like. So understand that that's how we gonna be rocking. Right? What was I saying? What are we doing next? So yeah, we can get into, was there anything? Well, anyway, is there anything that Hotep Histories page, those videos, we get into that too. We'll see what they got. Did y'all see that? Did y'all see my follower go down by 1 on the screen? All right, see what we got here. We talked about SD Redmond. We talked about William Ellison Jr. We talked about Soul City. We didn't do the Sarah Rector one. We can do that one. Oh. All right, let's do that one. And then we'll get to the communist video. We're going to be here for a little while, so I don't want to rush anything.
What's shaking, everybody? President Hotep Dubes here, and today we're going to be talking about little Sarah Rector. Now, Sarah was born in 1902 in Taft, Oklahoma, on Muskogee Creek allotment land. Her parents were direct descendants of people who were enslaved by the Creek tribe members. So in 1907, due to the Dawes Allotment Act of 1887, Sarah and other Creek freedmen miners were granted 160 acres of land each. Now, the allotment was valued at $556.50 roughly. And due to the soil being barren, it being full of rocks and infertile, the Rectors assumed that it had little to no value. Sarah's father thought the land wasn't even worth the $30 annual property tax that he had to pay, so he petitioned to sell the land. Thankfully, the petition was denied because the Rector family's life was about to change forever. In 1911, Sarah's father leased a parcel of the land to the Standard Oil Company to help cover the cost of owning it. And in 1913, an independent driller by the name of B.B. Jones struck black gold. The land produced 2,500 barrels or 105,000 gallons of oil on a daily basis. This oil was valued at $300 or over $9,000 adjusted for inflation every single day.
Dog, imagine, son. Imagine you making close to 10 G's a day because of oil in your backyard, son. Sarah's father was going to sell the land, G. He was going to sell the land. And only because he didn't have the power to do it is the reason why they were able to get this oil, son. $9,000 a day? A day? Oh my goodness. Look at the article. Great oil fields. This is why we talking about. You gotta go to the archives. Great oil fields that lie around Muskogee have made ignorant children fabulously wealthy. That's another thing. Sarah was not the only child. Now, I saw in the video other children got 160 acres. There was little black boys that were just as rich as Sarah. I gotta look them up too, because it was these two little black boys that got stupid rich too. But yo, these are children of slaves or former slaves and they get inherited this land, and it's mad oil under there all throughout, and they're making all of this bread. It was crazy. Children.
Needless to say, Sarah caught national and international attention. Headlines.
Shout out to Scruggs, man. I appreciate that, good brother. I appreciate that. The world's richest negress. A 10-year-old Oklahoma negress, Sarah Rector, is the richest colored person in the world, or soon will be, and will probably have to pay more income tax than any citizen of Oklahoma, said Mr. E.M. Kerr, managing editor of the Times Democrat of Muskogee, Oklahoma. What, son? The richest in the world? The richest colored person in the world is a 10-year-old in Oklahoma. Incredible, son. Incredible.
It's like millions to a Negro girl. Negro girl, $112,000 a year, graced the cover pages of every newspaper you could think of. Sarah became the most famous and richest black girl in the world.
You hear me? Y'all hear me? In the world. The richest black girl in the world, my G. Like, come on, son. This is, yo. Why, yo? Why? Like, I don't understand. I don't understand that we have this rich ass history and we would rather sit here and talk about what white people didn't like about us. It's insane to me, son. This girl, 10 to 13 years old, was the richest person, the richest child in the world. Like, what? Why is that not at the top of all curriculum? Like, what is more significant for children to read than children doing this type of stuff, having this type of fortune? I will be teaching the babies this all of the time, stuff like this all of the time.
However, as we know, this level of notoriety comes with its own set of problems. First of all, due to the laws, the Rector land and wealth had to be overseen by a white man.
Yeah, didn't like that. Did not like that at all. Did not like that, I will admit. See, there's sometimes you need to understand the historical context of the racism sometimes. You do. See, this is what I'm saying. I've never been one of those people that try to act like racism doesn't exist. I just don't want to have that shit keep being centered in our narratives. But in this specific instance, and other instances like it, you do need to emphasize things like this. That they did not have control of their own land. And I do not like that fact. That shit is trash. Did not need a white man to manage my land. It's insane.
The Rectors chose Thomas Jefferson T.J. Porter, who was purportedly an acquaintance of the Rectors. Sarah was also inundated with requests for loans, money gifts. She even received marriage proposals by
that was another thing.
4 grown German men, even though she was only 12 years old.
Yeah, like they was bugging. They were bugging, son. They were bugging. They were literally writing this little girl letters being like, "Oh, I've loved you ever since I've known you and found out about you. You're gorgeous. Let's, let's run off with each other." You got a bunch of dudes all throughout Europe and all of this other stuff trying to marry this girl to get her wealth. And this is one of the headlines. It says, "White boys seek to wed Negro. She is but 10 years old and black, has a fortune." That was the subheading. Jesus. Yo. When it comes to these old newspapers, yo, I don't know. Maybe it's just because I'm not of those times and stuff like. Watcher, real quick, we talked about it last night, brother. I told you, like, the ethnogenesis is African, Native American, and European. That's the ethnogenesis. Unless you wanted to, know more, like, if you have any like specific questions about it. But yeah, that is going to be the ethnogenesis of Black Americans. It's going to be a mixture of African, a mixture of European, and a mixture of Native American, and varying degrees within that. So you'll have people that have a little bit more European than African, or more African than European, or more Native American than both. Like it is what it is. But for the most part, that's going to be the three groups that get mixed up as far as the admixture of Black America, as we know it today. Not talking about the immigrants, even though I'm pretty sure that it applies to them too, just with their native people, you know what I'm saying, or whatever. But yeah, as far as Black Americans are concerned, FBA is going to be African, European, and Native American. That's going to be the ethnogenesis of the people. You dig? So yeah, grown men wanted to marry Sarah Rector.
Was only 12 years old. Another issue Sarah ran into was the media.
And we'll get more into that part 2 of this video.
All right, so part 2 was this one.
Another issue Sarah ran into was the media. In 1914, the Chicago Defender printed an article stating that Sarah's estate was being harshly mismanaged, stating that she was uneducated, dressed in rags, and lived in squalor. After Black leaders like Booker T. Washington became concerned.
What did I just say? He's going to pop up. Like, I'm telling you, he is going to pop up. There is no wealth being built in Black America, and this man is not involved. I'm telling you, he pops up everywhere, son. If you are making a dollar, a substantial dollar, and it's growing, and you building wealth, Booker T. Washington, you're going to hear from Booker T. Washington. You're going to hear from that man. I'm trying to tell you right now. You're going to hear from him. You're going to have to interface with that man eventually. That's just how it goes. So, Shorty, the media is saying that Sarah is living in squalor. They stealing her money. They mismanaging her funds. She's living, and she's living in a shack. She's wearing tattered rags and all this other stuff. And Booker T. Washington probably making that face he's making right now on screen, being like, yo, what the hell is going on over there? Let me tap in. Let me tap in and see what's going on.
They sent agents out to check on Sarah. Now, thankfully, all of the claims were found to be untrue.
Straight up and down. What I tell you about this Tuskegee machine? Booker T. Washington died in 1915. Okay, I'm gonna have to assume that Booker T. Washington put work in on the day that he died. I don't know how he died. I don't know what, if it was just health. I don't know what it was. But I'm willing to bet that Booker T. Washington, the day he died, he was in the middle of doing some work. He was in the middle of working. Because check this out.
However, Booker T. still insisted that she move to Alabama to attend the Tuskegee Institute.
Yo, listen, I know I sent my agents, my Tuskegee machine down there to make sure that you was good. They came back and told me you all right. However, I think you would be better at Tuskegee. One of the guys that was in the stream the other night, Scruggs, you remember, he was talking about a boarding school. And one of the benefits and features of boarding school is that you get to extract the child out of the home and they get to live in the institution. So that their daily lifestyle is changed as well. Because it's not enough to just give them the lessons and then bring them back to the toxic environments, whether it be in the household or the environment that the household is in. You dig? So it's better to put them in these institutions, in these schools, and fortify a particular work ethic, way of thinking, behaving, all of this other stuff, and then put them back into those environments, because at that point they have more, their will is more fortified at that point. They have more fortitude to be able to make the right decisions, as opposed to being a child who succumbed to peer pressure and being impressionable and stuff like that. But if you're at this school where everybody is essentially having high work ethics, high values, high morals, high, all these other things, it's much easier for that peer pressure to set in and you acquiesce to that as opposed to the negative stuff. And it's the same thing with the Tuskegee Institute. You go to this school, you dig, and you are surrounded by other students just like you, or surrounded by students who have high work ethics, values, morals, beliefs, etc., etc.
In 1920, Sarah and her family moved to Kansas City, Missouri. She was an 18-year-old millionaire with more wealth than most adults.
Imagine, son. Imagine. You 18 years old, you rich as hell. You are richer than most adults. Because now look, it went from $300 a day to $600 a day. Like, she's making mad bread, son. Like, these are people's yearly wages. She's making in a day, son. Do you know how incredible that is? Like, yo, this is crazy, son. Sarah's story is incredible.
So you can imagine the life that she was living. Fur coats, jewelry, cars, in a time where only 4% of the entire country drove cars.
Yo, listen. 96% of the entire country did not drive, but 18-year-old Sarah Rector was whipping. Sorry for the AI photo, but she was whipping. She had her own car, fur coats, jewelry. She did all of the things that you think an 18-year-old would do with that type of money. Because now she's making, what, $18,000 a day, adjusted for inflation? She's making almost 20 grand a day. Do you, like, what? What? Insane, son. Insane.
She owns stocks, bonds, a farm, real estate, including a boarding house, a car dealership, a bakery, a cafe, and over 2,000 acres of land.
Yo, I'm trying to tell you, yo. Listen, it's not on you, it's in you type shit. Real shit. Because it's like, for the most part, what I've seen people in the late 19th century, early 20th century, the minute that they had a windfall, the minute that they got a big bag, the minute that they, fortified a living for themselves, they created a living for themselves where they're doing very well, they immediately started investing it. They immediately invested it. It doesn't matter the age. It does not matter the location. It does not matter anything. If I have a surplus of money, my money needs to be working for me. And these are principles that, financial gurus are telling you in their $300 courses. You see what I'm saying? Like, these principles, these financial principles still hold true to this day. And this child essentially was investing. Yo, my money needs to work for me. Understanding this at 17, 18 years old, buying more land, okay, owning businesses, investing. It's like it was almost automatic for the ancestors when they got a big bag to invest it in something. To invest it in a business, to invest it in stocks, to invest it in themselves, to buying more land, whatever it is. Real estate was always at the top of the list. Stocks was always at the top of the list. Land, of course, is at the top of the list. They understood that, my money needs to be working for me. And I say this all of the time. All of the gurus, everybody says this. Listen, you need to have your money working for you. Because nobody is going to work for you, for your money, better than your money. Period. Your money does not get tired. Your money does not get hungry, okay? Your money doesn't have any feelings whatsoever. All you do is keep contributing dollars into an investment or into a vehicle that's going to give you a return on investment, and that's it. Your money is working 24/7 for you. While you sleeping, while you working out, while you on a date, while you on vacation, no matter what, your investments are working for you and making you more money. There's people that I follow on my timeline that have 5-figure dividend payouts. Their literal investments are paying their lifestyle. They get to pay the bills. They get to pay, expenses and stuff like that off of their investments. And then there's all of these different creative ways that you can keep your money and pay, have your tax bill to be as low as possible. All these different creative things. I don't give financial advice, so don't even trip. I'm just letting y'all know what's possible out here. Y'all have to understand that being financially literate and being able to be creative with your finances, being able to, stick and move, by parking your money in different vehicles. Like me, I'm big on alternative investments. Me personally, I have a dope wine portfolio. I have a dope whiskey portfolio that earned me, I want to say, like 15 to 30% on the dollar every year. And I can, if I wanted to, I can, have the wine shipped to me and drink it. And I'm pretty sure there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes along with that. And I don't really have any interest to do that. But if I wanted to, I could. So I'm big on alternative investments like that. They're not really tracked or pegged to the S&P 500 at all. You dig? But assets are assets. Now, no, I'm trying to think about it. There's not too many asset classes that I don't have. You dig what I'm saying? It's not about bragging or nothing like that, but I pretty much have my hands in all of it. Stocks, crypto, real estate, alternatives, gemstones, precious metals, artwork, like you name it, I'm pretty sure I have an investment in it. It's just, it only makes sense. It's so available to invest in. You dig what I'm saying? So when it comes to this type of stuff, that's exactly what I thought. That's how I know these are my people. This is my tribe. Because the minute I got my first 100,000, I invested it. The minute I made my first 100,000 for the year, I had my bills on auto pay. I was investing every week, no matter how much I got paid, because I was making, sales, so it was varying and all of that other stuff. I was diligent with my bread. And this is my mid-20s. 10 years later, look where we at. Now, I ain't the richest man walking, but I definitely am not the brokest. You feel me? And it's all because my money is working for me.
She moved into the Rector mansion, got married, and had 3 sons. She would live a lavish lifestyle all the way up until her older age. However, lost most of it during the Great Depression.
See, that's another a part of Black American history that nobody really talks about. See, because how can I say this? Because people focus on poor people, period, when it comes to Black American history, you don't get to hear about all of the consequential things that happen to upper class and wealthier Black Americans during these times. So this white guy has gone viral by talking about the Great Depression and talking about how Black people saved Cadillac and all this other stuff. And he said that when it came down to the Great Depression, a lot of Black people weren't affected, or most Black people, I think he said, were not affected because they weren't allowed to bank with white people. And this is what my problem is when it comes to these well-meaning white people who try to, bolster Black American self-esteem and whatnot. To think that we needed white banks to be banked is you already fucked up. But again, this is the benevolent white man when it comes to our quote unquote allies. He's telling this story to being like, yo, blacks weren't, this is, you know what? Perfect example. This white man is in a room full of Black people telling them that, yo, your dollars saved Cadillac, 1. And then 2, y'all weren't affected by the Great Depression because we white people didn't allow you to bank with us. This is the exact issue that I have. his telling of that story, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt in saying that he had good intentions in telling that story. But what you just told a man like me was that black dollars kept Cadillac afloat. You dig what I'm saying? And then you also thought that there were no black banks in this area or in this era of American history. So the end all be all to a black American banking at this time, which would be 1929, right? 1930, when the Great Depression happened. You're not thinking about any of the black banks that existed. You're only thinking about the white banks. This is what the Allies do. He brought up two white institutions or two white businesses and centered it in black America. And now that's supposed to be black history. And I've had mad people send me this video like, yo, Doe, is this true? Is this true? I'm like, yo, it don't matter. It don't matter. He already is coming from a thought process that black people didn't own banks. Think about it like this. He's saying the Great Depression didn't affect black people, right, in the same way because white people didn't allow them to bank with them. The more accurate way to tell this story is that black banks who had black customers and all that other stuff were a little bit safer, just a little bit safer than the white banks because of the amount of customers that they had, the amount of money and stuff like that. So when those banks fall through, the ripple effect hits a larger swath of the American population because white people are a larger percentage of the population. And there are going to be certain advantages that come along with that. But to think that black people were not affected by the Great Depression is an insane statement. So while I get he's trying to, like, again, it's a feel-good story. It's supposed to make you feel good. Like, yo, you kept Cadillac afloat. Y'all weren't even affected by the Great Depression like that. And that's all nonsense. It's all nonsense. Because what about the black banks that had issues? What about the black business owners who had employees? What about the black upper middle, and upper class black Americans who did have holdings, who did have businesses, who did go under because of the Great Depression? That doesn't matter because the white man gets to tell you, oh, you weren't even affected like that because we didn't allow y'all to bank with us. This is what I'm talking about, son. They center white people in our narratives all of the time. But you won't. They'll tell you about white banks and white owned Cadillac, but they won't tell you about Sarah Rector balling out of control. You feel me? Owning all of these different businesses, investing her money, doing all of these different things. They won't tell you about that, but they'll tell you about, oh, white banks, white car company. And that story is supposed to be black history. And it's just white history with black characters in it. The main historical pieces was Cadillac as a company, the Great Depression, and white banks. They centered white people, but of course they tell it as black history. This is what I'm talking about, yo. They don't know how not to center white people when it comes to black history. And that's my number one pet peeve with the way mainstream public school or mainstream black history is taught. You must center white people. It's almost required that you have to make sure white people are at the nucleus of our narrative, our historical narratives. Nah. Even the Great Depression, where everybody fucked up, we gotta center white people. Why can't we just talk about the state of black America? Why do we have to center white people? Why do we have to talk about white Cadillac? Why do we have to talk about white banks? This is nuts.
But before then, She would do extravagant things like host lavish parties where celebrities like Duke Ellington and Count Basie would come through. She would host street races where she would pay the tickets if they were to get pulled over. When I say Sarah Rector is one of the most ballinest people that you have ever heard of, that is an understatement.
Trying to tell you, son. We got this type of swaggerific type of lifestyle going on, and y'all want to tell me about white people. Y'all want to tell me about white people, and we got Sarah Rector on the line. Well, we did. I think we only got a few left. Let's do. This is one of my favorites too. It's one of my favorites too. My man Lunsford Lane.
President Hotep Dube said, and today we're going to be talking about Lunsford Lane. Now, Lunsford was born in 1803 in Raleigh, North Carolina. His parents were slaves on two different but nearby plantations, and as an enslaved boy, Lunsford was no stranger to hard work. He performed a plethora of duties from wood cutting, gardening, working in the stables, the cotton fields, you name it. However, this same oppressive way of life made Lunsford a dreamer. He daydreamed about being free and what freedom meant. One day, Lunsford's father gave him a small basket of peaches. He sold them for 30 cents, which was the most money he had ever made in his life. After that, he won some marbles and sold them for 60 cents. After that, weeks later, he was given $1 by a friend of his slave owner. After that, another man gave him $1. And after that, his slave owner's son gave him 50 cents. These sums of money from various people, plus his yearning for freedom, gave Lunsford a new love for money. It's like a light bulb turned on over his head.
Son, I love this story. I love this story. This is one of those stories. I mean, I ain't gonna lie. Like 100% of the stories that I be making videos about, I would love to see. Actual portrayal with it, with a real nice size budget behind it and stuff like that. The cinematography, I think, will be fire. But this slave boy has these different experiences throughout his childhood. His father, gives him a basket of peaches. He sells them, making his first money. It's the most money he ever made. Then he wins the marbles. Then he wins more money. And then, people are giving him $1. And like, this is exactly how I believe he went to sleep. I really do believe that he went to sleep with money on his mind. In the same way that, in the same way we were talking about how Booker T. Washington and his contemporaries Booker T. Washington's contemporaries when he was a little boy, his fellow little boy friends looked at freedom and the lack of work as synonymous. That I'm free from slavery, then that means that I'm free from work. Conversely, Lunsford looked at money as synonymous with freedom. That I don't know if he even understands that he can buy his freedom at this point, but he sees what money is allowing him to do. He understands that he's enslaved. That he understands that there is something called freedom that he's not living right now. But he also understands that I'm making money. Like, I'm earning money. It's not lost on him the impact of what that is, happening to his mind and what he thinks can actually happen as a result of him making more money. Money and freedom became synonymous to him. And again, because of the foresight, you dig what I'm saying? Look at it today. They call things what do they call it when you have made enough money or you're making enough money to pay your bills and then some? That you're, not only just making ends meet, that you actually have excess and you actually have way more than you need, quote unquote, to be able to survive. They call that financial freedom. Financial independence. So he's closer as far as the associations than Booker T. Washington's friends were when they were kids, who just said, slavery just means I don't have to work. You get what I'm saying now? Like, y'all understand, like, the parallels in thought. The synonyms are what you're going to create. These are the parallels that you're going to create in your own head. And whether you are on or off the mark is based upon, you know, how it plays out in real life. Lunsford understood that there was a connection between freedom and money. And he was accurate.
All Lunsford cared and thought about was making money. A hustler was born. Lunsford would sneak off the plantation in the middle of the night with his axe and chop wood for 25 cents. After this, Lunsford's father suggested that he start preparing smoking tobacco. He sold the tobacco for 15 cents each. However, due to the particular way that he cured the tobacco, it could only be smoked with a pipe. So, of course, Lunsford crafted a smoking pipe out of reeds that grew plentiful in the area.
So, his pops, we have to shout out Pops in this story. Pops is clearly an integral, instrumental person in his life, as fathers should be. His father is seeing his son developing this entrepreneurial spirit. He sparked it. He gave him a basket of peaches. Lunsford could have sat with that basket of peaches and ate every last one of them, shared it, gave them away, dropped it, wasted them, whatever. But he didn't. He sold them. He made money for himself. He says, yo, we live in North Carolina. There's nothing but tobacco around here. Start selling tobacco. Now, this is his father seeing him sneaking off the plantation at night, in the middle of the night, to chop wood. He's a slave with a side hustle. A slave with a side hustle. And his father sees him. It's like, yo, son, you should sell smoking tobacco. Realizes the type of smoking tobacco it is and being like, yo, son, you need to make pipes. You create the pipes. We got reeds growing plentiful out here. We got more than enough reeds to be able to make as many pipes as we need, as you need. Build those. So this is the pipe that he created right here to go along with the tobacco.
He sold the pipes for 10 cents each. He sold his tobacco and pipes to anyone that would buy, but also to the members of the state's legislature, which allowed his business to gain notoriety. In 1828, he married his wife, had 2 kids, and opened up his business. He was known as a tobacconist. Lunsford hired sales agents all throughout North Carolina, and after paying his slave owner's widow for his time and taking care of his children, Lunsford saved the rest.
You heard that right. A slave had employees. A slave had employees. He had agents. He had sales agents going around selling his tobacco. He had sales agents, fam. Sales agents. And y'all want to keep telling me about how fucked up it is to be black in America. I am sick of it, son. Learn about Lunsford Lane. Learn about Lunsford Lane, goddammit. Because these are the stories that need to be told. Not to say that the other slave narratives are not valid. They are. But these are the stories. If we're going to motivate, if we're going to inspire, if we're going to, do all of that stuff with the histories, then it needs to be like this. It needs to be these narratives being told. Because I know for a fact, none of you in the realm of thinking about history thought that a slave could have sales agents selling his tobacco while he's still a slave. No way. I do not believe you. I know this because when I get to talking like this on a timeline, motherfuckers call me crazy. They call me insane like I'm making this stuff up. But Lunsford Lane had sales agents. Paid the slave owner's wife for his time. So he goes to her and is like, yo, Madam such and such, Mistress such and such, how much is it for me to rent myself out for the day? And she gives him a number. Okay? Oh, fine. Gives her that money, and he gets to walk off the plantation for the day. Now, this goes back to what I was talking about with the varying degrees of slave owners. Some was down with this, others weren't. Because at the end of the day, it was about economics. If you're going to pay me, you know I own you. If you're going to pay me for your time, go ahead and do your thing. And it was to him worth it. I'll pay you my little I'll pay you $20, $10 for the day so I can go make $80. So I can go make $100. It only made sense. And because I am keeping all of this shit away from y'all, I'm not balling out. I'm a slave, so I'm not buying a bunch of shit. I'm stacking all of this money. So y'all don't even know how much money I'm making. You just know that you were just paid to hire me out. You don't know if that came from a white person. You don't know if that came from my own pocket. You don't know where it came from. All you know is that you were paid for the day, for my time.
After 6 to 8 years of stacking, he had accrued over $1,000, which he used to buy his freedom in 1835.
Head down. No extracurricular spending. No non-essential spending. I know that sounds crazy because we're talking about a slave, but he stacked his bread for 6 to 8 years and stacked up $1,000. Now, I know in the 21st century contemporary sense that don't sound like a lot of money, but when you're getting paid in cents, when $1 is a lot of money and 50 cents is substantial, and you've grinded that all the way up to $1,000, you got to give it up for him. You got to give it up to him. Like, I be trying to tell people, yo, like, do you have the ability to turn $1 into $1,000? Do you have the ability to turn 1,000 to one? Do you have the ability to turn $1 into $1,000? Not a lot of people do. Not a lot of people do. So when I see people make that happen, I gotta salute them. I got to. So shout out to Lunsford Lane. But all right. So we're going to get back to the communism video.
Well, I think it was very clear from the very beginning of the case that I was a communist,
Right.
because I feel that
Yeah.
We
heard you, Angela.
Ultimately, liberate ourselves as
In different points of my studies. From the Harlem Renaissance to the Black Panther Party, communism rears its political and economic head over and over again. I even highlighted this in my Diaspora War video last year. Since communism is a European concept that was not only foreign to Black Americans in terms of location, it also flew in the face of the political and economic structure that they lived, suffered, and thrived in. It always intrigued me as to how it gained prominence in Black American life. I finally got curious enough to do the research on the relationship between Black America and communism. Much of what I found seems to have been buried in the archives of history, despite how significant it was in shaping so much of the way Black Americans viewed the economic and political systems of their country. Even though I am not a communist, nor support communist ideology
At all.
macro, especially as it pertains to Black Americans, I'm going to be as objective as honestly possible in my analysis. This video goes deeper than I even initially thought, and it blew my mind in certain points of my studies. So without further ado, let's get into it. The introduction of communism in Black America actually started with the introduction of socialism. All throughout the mid to late 19th century, there were socialist-led revolutions happening in Europe. You had the French and German revolutions in 1848 and 49, and then the Russian Revolution that happened in the 1870s and 1880s, which then led to the Bolshevik Revolution in the early 20th century.
So off the rip, off the dribble, okay, we are dealing with overthrowing of governments. That's it. We are just burning down one regime to usher in another. That's what we're dealing with here as far as socialist revolutions. So historically, this is all black Americans have to rock with outside of like Mao or whatever, who also is learning from this. So this is where it starts. France, Germany, Russia, European concepts. Overthrowing the government. You dig? During this time, these socialist Europeans immigrated to the United States and created organizations and movements. The first of these organizations was the Working Men's Party of the United States, or the WPUS, founded in 1876 by 10 Americans and 1 German. It was later renamed the Socialist Labor Party in 1877. Well, actually, this really starts with the Shakers, who broke away from the Quakers in England in 1747. Their leading founder, Anne Lee, fled from England because of religious persecution and established their socialist movement in the United States in 1774. Then the Harmony Societies, which was founded by a German immigrant by the name of Johann George Rapp, were established in the United States in 1804 in Pennsylvania, then to Indiana, then back to Pennsylvania, and then back to Indiana after it was sold to Robert Owen, who was the founder of Utopian Socialism. Utopian socialism was a pejorative word created by Karl Marx for socialists he deemed too idealistic and fantastical in their worldview. Karl Marx wrote the Communist Manifesto the same year the socialist revolutions of 1848 happened in Germany and France. One of Karl Marx's agents by the name of Joseph Wedemeyer, who, under the instructions of Marx and Engels, fled to the United States in 1851 to spread the gospels of Marxism to Americans and to gain financial support. Around this same time, the International Workingmen's Association was founded in London in 1864 but dissolved in 1876, which was then succeeded by the Workingmen's Party of the United States that same year, and then it was renamed to the Socialist Labor Party. I ain't gonna lie, I smoked that. I'm not gonna hold you. I smoked that. That is the real history. I did not make any of that up. That is the real history, son. I went all the way back. I just kept going further and further back. Like, yo, where did this come from? Okay, where did that come from? Where did that come from? And just kept going further and further back, son. Kept going further and further back. And that is the history that I got. All the way to I went all the way back to the 18th century. You dig? The first black American socialist was about to show it, Peter H. Clark. He wasn't until the late 19th century. So it's over 100 years before he even made it to black America. Now that we're all caught up, let's move on. The first black man on record to support socialism was educator and political leader Peter H. Clark. He was a member of the Republican Party from about 1856 to 1872, but left the party. In Herbert Gutman's article in the Journal of Negro History titled Peter H. Clark, Pioneer Negro Socialist, 1877, he lists 2 reasons why he left the Republican Party during this time. Quote, one was his gradual disillusion with the Republican Party and its Southern policies in the mid-1870s, and the other was his growing concern with the problems created by the Depression in the 70s. So, this is what I'm talking about here. Black people, staunch Republicans, whatnot, right? But then you have the Compromise of 1877. This is around the time that Peter is talking about, right? So, when you have the Republican Party essentially turning its back on black Americans are peeping this. Like he said, the mid-1870s. So let's just say, for argument's sake, this is 1875. And they're seeing the sentiment changing that leads up to the Great Compromise of 1877. And he's seeing the problems created by industrial capitalism intensified by the Depression in the 70s. So again, when it comes down to Booker T. Washington's detractors, they're saying that your industrialism, your industriousness, your vocational work, all your commercial work, all your professional work is perpetuating a system that is oppressing us. End quote. Now you may be wondering, Hotep Dubes, I thought the Republicans were supporters of black Americans during this time of American history. And you would be correct until you're not. If you watched episode 4 of the Hotep History series, then you'd remember how the Lily White movement grew in prominence within the Republican Party during this time. Republicans pushed black Americans out of the party in favor of these Lily Whites in attempts to win over Democrat votes in the South. Something I know that will be a recurring theme in this video is how black Americans were disheartened by capitalists building wealth on the backs of the American laborer and then looking to economic and political alternatives. They essentially pursued socialism in the name of searching for a solution. That's it. Now, I'm not saying that's not what late 20th century, early 21st century socialists and communists are doing. I'm not saying that. And the only reason why the only reason why I don't let them off with that is because there's all of this history that predates you when it comes to socialism and communism that you should know better. Just being honest. You should know better. It has not worked. Peter H. Clark in the late 19th century has a little bit more leeway with me. Excuse me. He has a little bit more leeway with me because a lot of the things that we are seeing today, like after the Bolshevik Revolution, after, all of the things that we've seen as far as our, contemporary history and stuff like that, his contemporary history is not as in your face. First of all, I don't even know how a black American man finds out about what the hell is going on in France and Germany. Especially when you got all of this other stuff that you got to deal with as a black American. The Compromise of 1877 is coming down the pike. So again, him looking for an alternative as a solution is what this is born out of. So I give a little bit more grace to Peter H. Clark than I do Angela Davis or Stokely Carmichael. He has less history to go off of than they do. Much less history. Clark once said, quote, "Go to the South and see the capitalists banded together over the poor whites. They carefully calculate how much and no more it will require to feed the black laborer and keep him alive from one year to another. That much they will give him for his hard labor, on which the aristocracy live, and not a cent more will they give him. Not a foot of land will they sell to the oppressed race who are trying to crowd out the degradation into which capital has plunged them." So this is what I'm speaking on. Like when it comes down to the way they are viewing things, Peter H. Clark, a black man, is advocating for poor people, not just poor black people, but poor white people too. Sammy asks, so Lily Whites were starting back in the 1870s, combined with those fancying communism during that time. I thought it didn't start until 1920. Nah, man. Socialism has been around in America for as long as it's been in Europe, essentially. Because in the same way that we'll have fleeing Europeans during the 1910s and 20s because of World War I, they were fleeing from these countries in the late 19th century as well for these same things. They had a French Revolution. They had a French Revolution. They had a German Revolution. You dig what I'm saying? Like, these people were coming to our country. They were coming to the United States and pushing this stuff once they got here. Even though they were fleeing from socialism, they wanted to bring the socialism with them. So Peter Clark, he's just sitting here saying, like, yo, I'm seeing it. And then they got, of course, the socialists. The socialist of political cartoon where the capitalist is squeezing low wages on his back, and then from under him he's got high rent, high expenses and stuff like that. And it says capitalism, monopoly, plutocracy, wage slavery. You dig what I'm saying? So I understand their anger. If you're seeing these people living high on the hog off of your labor, I'm not mad that you're mad. I'm not. I'm understanding. I just don't think that socialism is the solution still. I think the solution would be to, I would say, show exactly why you should be paid more. That's why I'm not really against like strikes and shit like that. I'm not really like union and unionizing and stuff like that. It could get a little corrupt and shit like that, but I have seen the pros of a union, right? But being able to tell your employee like, yo, listen, man, you are not paying us enough for the job. And we know that you personally are living in an excess that can be, shared. So either you raise the wages or we quit. And in capitalism, the next employer is going to have competitive wages because that's how you get a larger workforce. You want to beat your competition. So, they not paying you enough, we'll pay you more than him to do the same job over here. And that's how the competition works, which drives the wages up, which drives productivity up, et cetera, et cetera. But of course, they're thinking like, yo, we need to dismantle this whole system and usher in something new. So let's keep going. He joined the WPUS the same year it was created in 1876. During the Great Railroad Strikes of 1877, Clark gave a heralding speech about the current state of the American worker. Quote, that this evil of poverty is partially curable, at least I am justified in thinking, because I find each of the great political parties offering remedies for the hard times and the consequent poverty. Many wise men, learned in political economy, assure us that these doctrines, faithfully followed, will result in a greater production of wealth and a more equal division of the same. But as I have said before, there is but one efficacious remedy proposed, and that is found in socialism. That's it. They make their positions extremely clear. Yo, Democrats and Republicans keep talking that shit. They keep talking about raising wages. They keep giving lip service on all of the things that they are going to do and help. And I'm not seeing any of that shit. So, hey, the way I see it, as far as I'm concerned, we need socialism in order for us to really get some real solutions going on here. And this is what I be talking about. I don't be disagreeing with the ancestors that I disagree with because I don't study them. I disagree with them exactly for the reason of me studying them. I heard what Peter H. Clark said. He told me directly. He told me exactly why he wants to pursue, or we should be pursuing, socialism. The Black Panther Party told me exactly why we should be pursuing socialism and communism. They were very clear in their agenda. It's up to me as the listener, as the reader, to get with it or not. And I'm choosing not to. All respect to Peter H. Clark, but he was wrong about socialism. You want to practice this socialism on your own. You do not want the country or the government telling you to be a socialist. You don't. You want to be able to help your fellow man with your wealth. That's what you want. That's what you truly want. You do not want the government being able to say, yo, we're distributing wages in this way. We're controlling the means of production in this way. Not in that way. You don't. You want to be able to get paid, right? What would I say? Because a livable wage, that's a cliche. You want to be able to be paid what you are deserved for the job that you are doing. You dig what I'm saying? Once you do that, you are now able to create co-ops with your neighbors or in your community, have community-owned gardens and stuff like that, to where nobody technically owns, no one person technically owns this garden, but it feeds, 75% of the families in the community. This grocery store is a co-op owned by everybody in the community via certificates, bonds, or whatever it is. And then based upon that collective ownership, you get discounts and all this other stuff. There are socialistic things that you can implement in your community that is directly gotten from the wealth you are building under capitalism. But instead, these people are thinking big. I'll give them that. They're thinking big. They want to be able to overthrow the entire system and usher this entire thing in, because they think everybody who's going to be operating under this will be as benevolent or as selfless as me. And that's not how it ever worked out. What happens is a country adopts socialism or communism, and then all of that power that you think was only corruptible under capitalism is highlighted and magnified because everything is controlled by the state anyway. So the state says how much food you are able to eat. They ration your meals indefinitely. It's literally feast or famine at that point. You have no control over your crops. The government, this is what they did in Russia. The government comes in. You grow crops. You're a farmer. The government comes in, collects all of your crops, and then gives you a ration of your crops back to you. That's communism. You do not want that. You spent all year growing potatoes. You spent all year growing apples. You spent all year growing whatever crop you have. And then the state comes in, takes all of it, and gives you 1, 5, 10% of it back for you to feed your family on. Instead of you being able to keep your crop, sell it, okay, to private citizens or the government, however it works out, and then you be able to use that wealth to feed whoever you want. If you want to be benevolent and you want to be charitable and you want to give away potatoes, that's your right. But you telling the government, hey, yo, come take my potatoes from me and then give it to the poor. And then understanding that this system is corrupt just like every last one of these other ones. So now the state has complete control of your potatoes. And after they do that, do you honestly think they're going to be like, well, Sammy did say we need to be giving this to the poor, or we need to be giving this, to that, and the third. Nobody gives a damn. They don't care what Sammy wants anymore. We own it. This is our land. This is our crops. We are in complete control of this. What you want for these crops means absolutely nothing. Sammy says, a lot of what was being rebelled against was government induced, where government would either exclude us from ownership or exclude us from lobbying for wages. Correct. So while you think because you are having difficulties under capitalism, that instead of remedying those solutions within capitalism, we need to usher in another economic and political regime that is equally, if not more susceptible to corrupting, more susceptible to hemorrhaging your wages, more susceptible to having more government overreach in your economics, where they literally dictate how you buy and sell, who you buy and sell from or to. They control all of this stuff. So instead of getting to the root of the issue in capitalism, you usher in another ism that has the same issues, if not worse. That's what the issue is. Your issue is with the corruption, not the economic system. There is absolutely no way I think you have a problem with profit. You don't have a problem with profit. You have a problem with crony capitalism. You have a problem with, all of these different tech companies being able to lobby the government on the behalf of their sector and being like, yo, we need these contracts, or we need this preferential treatment, and we need to be able to squash competition in this way. You having a beef with that, that's fine. But to think that the remedy or the solution to these issues is ushering in socialism or communism is insane. And this is Peter H. Clark. I disagree with him. But let's get into it. Despite his convictions, socialism, especially among Black Americans, was still very unpopular. This was made evident in the next year's election. In 1878, he ran for Congress as one of the first congressional candidates of the Workingmen's Party. Competing in Ohio's first congressional district, he received 275 votes,
accounting for 1.09% of the total.
Nobody trying to hear that. Nobody trying to hear that. Not gonna hold you, Pete. We rock with you. We do think that you rock with the community, dog, but nobody is about to be ushering in no types of socialism, bro. Black Americans, this is what I'm saying. For the most part. See, this is like, this is what I think. I know this is my conspiracy bag, but I think there's been a concerted effort ever since slaves got out of slavery to push this socialism shit. Real shit. Ever since, they have been trying to use the plight of black Americans specifically to usher in socialism and communism. Because all of these different countries, it's only one race. It's only one race of people. There's only one race of people in France in 18th century, 19th century France. There's only one race of people inside of Germany in 18th and 19th century Germany. That's it. So when it comes down to that, it's all class. It's all class that they're separating these people under. Now in America, you have an entire population, millions of people who were brought here or who were here before and then used as a slave labor force. We can exploit the fuck out of that. We can exploit that. We can exploit that not only on the lines of class, not only on the lines of status, but also on the lines of race. That's something that we don't have in Europe. We only have one race for the most part when it comes to Europe. I know there's going to be, I already know what some people are going to say. They're the same race. They're the same race, dog. Like, it is what it is. We're not about to argue that. But when it comes to America, it's very different. It's very, very different. So they have been using former slaves' grievances with the country to use for their agenda. And this is becoming more and more clear to me. Manning Johnson is going to be a part of the book club. That book is going to definitely be required reading. Required reading for the Hotep History Book Club. We're going to do Negro in Business first. But I do think that. I think that the socialists and the communists understand the unique position that black Americans have always been in historically because of slavery and because of the fact that we are a different race of the white people that enslaved them. They were able to get in on this type of time, and they had to just show them, like, this is the reason why you were enslaved. You were enslaved because of capitalism. And once again, you make it synonymous. You make slavery synonymous with anything that you want to get rid of. So they made it synonymous with capitalism. I personally think that it would be more akin to communism because you, at that point, would have to look at black Americans like livestock if it was capitalism. You take away their humanity. Everything is owned by the state. Everything is owned by the governing bodies. Okay, so in the South, who was that? It was the planter class. It was the politicians that uphold the laws of slavery and all this other stuff. The state. And they owned and controlled the means of production. Slaves. The means of production were people. It was a literal slave force, and they owned it. So while I understand that you are able to turn a profit based upon this labor, it was all going to one place for the most part. I would say for every 95 cents per dollar used or created or generated from slave labor went to the enslavers or the people who benefited from slavery, not the slaves. The slaves got 5 on that. Some got paid. I tell you that. I tell you that all the time. Some slaves got paid. We just talked about Lunch for Laden having a side hustle. That happens. But for the most part, it went back to the state. In 1879, he parted ways with the Socialist Labor Party, which I will be calling SLP throughout the video, stating that his primary political focus was the welfare of black Americans, but expressing doubt that the SLP shared his commitment. Dog, this is going to be a consistent theme. This is what they do. Fix my mic stand. This is what they do. This is what they do. They hit you with the okie doke and being like, yo, black man, black woman, aren't you tired of being exploited by capitalism? Black man, black woman, aren't you tired of your labor being exploited by the planter class? All of this other shit, right? And then you say like, yeah, hell yeah, fuck capitalism, socialism, socialism, socialism. And then you get with the socialists and then you realize, oh, y'all some crackers too. Y'all was just using me. Y'all was just using my life and my plight and what I got going on to benefit yourself. This is a through line. This is Peter H. Clark. He's the first one to realize this. Late 19th century, he gets in the Socialist Party. I'm talking about, he said there is no other efficacious remedy than socialism. He goes from saying that there's nothing else. There's nothing else in this world that is more important to solving the issue in black America or poor Americans overall than socialism. Then, after a short amount of time, realizing, being like, oh shit, y'all do not give a fuck about the black American plight whatsoever. Y'all are only using this to push your own agenda. This was in the 1870s and 1880s he realized this. He got in, seen what he was dealing with, understood that this was some bullshit and was like, okay, yeah, I'm out. I'm out. They don't actually give a fuck about black people. He said this in 1884. Could have saved us a whole lot of time, a whole lot of trouble if everybody after Peter H. Clark read his sentiments about socialism. He was the first one in America. He's the first black American socialist. He did it. Pete did that, so hopefully you wouldn't have to go through that, and y'all still wanted to go through it. He told y'all, yo, I thought the Socialist Party was down for us, and I thought they was rocking with us, but yo, they don't care about black American issues. They do not care about the black American plight whatsoever. They are using it for their own benefit, for their own advantage. This is what the ancestors are saying. This is why I don't have to make shit up. This is why I don't have to lie on the ancestors. They did it already. All you black American socialists out there, all you black American Marxists out there, all you black American communists out there, Peter H. Clark already did it. He already did it. He realized that the party was not lit. He realized that the Communist Party, the Socialist Party, ain't doing shit for the black man either. But here y'all are. You dig what I'm saying? With communist rhetoric. Y'all pro-communist. I told y'all last night, there's a video of a dude. Hold on, let me turn the mic down. There's a video of a dude who is like, not promoting, but shouting out Russia for calling out American racism, but doesn't read, because he's looking at posters. He's not reading anything. He did tell people to read Black Bolshevik by Harry Haywood. I read it. I disagree with him too. Like just because I don't care who it is. I'm going to hear you out because I like to read. But you're going to eventually say the same thing that the black socialists before you have said. You're going to try to remix it or try to say it in a different way, but it's always going to go down to the same things, that you want the means of productions to be in the hands of a select few, which you call the people, and then all that's going to do is turn that into the next class of people that are the ruling class. And you think that the people that are going to be a part of that ruling class are going to rule benevolently and be benevolent to the people. That's what you believe. But then once you get in front of that money, once you get in front of the backroom deals, once you get in front of being corruptible, and you realize, oh shit, I ain't no better than the motherfuckers that was ruling over me before. I'm no different. You want to believe that if you were in the position of power, you wouldn't do X, Y, Z, and you would do X, Y, Z. And that's cool. But every single time that this has happened, the person that takes charge fucks over the people. Every time. Every single time. The only time that I've actually seen this work is when the people have a way to make their own money. They have a way to make their own money, and then they give willingly to a particular system, program, initiative, or what have you, and then be able to work that way. You know what I'm saying? That's it. Like I said, Father Devon, that's what he did. His congregation, his constituency worked for him. He clothed, housed, fed, employed all of these different people. They would use a portion of, a percentage of their money to put back into the coffers so that everybody could eat and all that other stuff. But they had jobs. They had their own money. They had their own things. They owned things. They still had private ownership. Sammy says they would argue that because greed is simply a human trait, all politicians are susceptible to it and vulnerable to being bought out. The capitalists seeking to monopolize whatever sector they're in. Yes, sure. But what I am saying is, and I know you're not really necessarily arguing with me, Sammy, but I'm just arguing with that point. My entire point is not to say that capitalism is not corruptible or that it's some benevolent economic political system. No. However, you can have the lowest amount of trust and the highest amount of reward based upon that ratio. So I don't trust the government as far as I can throw them at all. That is the reason why I would want capitalism, because communism means that I need to trust this government is going to do right by me. And I don't. That doesn't make any sense. I want as much autonomy over my finances as possible. I want to be able to own as much as possible as an individual, as opposed to hoping that my government is going to do right by me with the money that they have. The United States of America has shown me day in and day out, year in and year out of the 35 years that I've been alive, that they are incapable of balancing a budget, let alone giving a fuck about the people. I do not trust my government. I do not. I do not trust my government to do right by me whatsoever. When the tax rate is what it is, the taxes coming out of everybody's checks is what it is, that poverty looks the way it does, all of this stuff is going on. So I personally would want no taxes. I want all American workers to be able to keep all of their money so they can do whatever they want with their money to enrich themselves, their family, their community, etc., etc. But even with all of the money y'all are collecting through taxes, look at the sheer state of our country. All of this tax revenue, and look at it. So no, I do not want my country, my government to own the means of production of all different types of sectors of business in my country. That is insane. If you already have a distrust of your government, you definitely are not going to like them under communism. Because at that point, whether you trust them inherently or not, you're going to have to rely on them. You're required, you're demanded, you're compelled to rely on the government for everything that you want and need. And if they already playing with your taxes now, if they already are losing track of $1 trillion here and another $1 trillion here, what do you think is going to happen under communism? Or because you think the person that's ushering this regime in is going to live forever, is going to be benevolent, they're not going to be susceptible to corruption? Are y'all shitting me? Think about it like this. If the Black Panther Party was susceptible to infiltration the way it was with William O'Neill's bitch ass, William O'Neill not only was able to infiltrate the Black Panther Party, he was able to infiltrate and become head of security. Head of security. One of the most tragically ironic types of infiltration, that you are a mole. And this mole, y'all put him the head of your security. And you want me to believe that you ushering in a regime, you're not going to have things slip through the cracks? You're not going to be corruptible. Come on now. Come on now. Y'all not making no sense. I don't believe you. I absolutely do not believe you. You want me to think that they was able to get some of y'all hooked on heroin, but they wasn't gonna be able to get y'all hooked on greed? If you was already susceptible to becoming an addict to heroin, you wouldn't be addicted to power. You wouldn't be addicted to the greed. And this is not trying to disparage the ancestors. This is talking about human nature. Show me a communistic regime that is not filled with corruption, greed, and all these other things. Same thing with capitalism. But what happens under capitalism? John Q. Public, the average guy, can wake up one day, save up his bread, start a business or whatever it is, and enrich himself under this system currently, even with all of the corruption. You cannot say that about communism. You cannot say that about socialism. You can exclusively only say this about capitalism. Now, if you're going to use capital with a mix of socialism, like like the Scandinavian countries, that's what they love bringing up, Norway and them. And Norway and them is tired of y'all saying that they're socialistic countries, because they tell y'all we are not socialists. We use capital. We have for-profit businesses here. However, we have a high-ass tax rate, and we actually use those taxes for social programs. Again, either give me all of my money at the end of the year or at the end of my check or whatever it is, or actually use these taxes to actually make the country better, because that's not what you're doing. I would vote for the former. Give me my money. I will choose what I want to do with my money. This is what I'm saying. But to think that, oh, the remedy to capitalism or the corruption that's in capitalism is to usher in socialism or communism is retarded. It's dumb. 1882, he assisted county Democrats in Ohio in drafting a civil rights bill, which was successfully enacted into law. Now, if you look at Clark's track record, you can see that he wasn't blindly loyal to political parties. He shifted between the Republican, Socialist, and Democrat parties throughout his career and was able to achieve success in many ways. One example of this was when Black Republican Ohioans in 1883 started to support the Democratic Governor George Hoadley after the Republican Party didn't do anything to repeal the black laws of Ohio for over 20 years. The Republicans, in response, nominated 3 black men to seats in the state legislature and promised to repeal the black laws if black Americans returned to their party. Even though Hoadley lost the election to Republican candidate Joseph Foraker, the black laws of Ohio were repealed. Listen, understand, your ancestors have the playbook. You know why? Because they went through it. They did the trial and error. They made the mistakes. They failed and succeeded and failed. They've done all of the things. So when you're looking at the history, this is why we study it. This is not about feel-good stories. This is about being able to extrapolate strategy from the ancestors. They are doing this stuff to be able to pass down these lessons. I told y'all last night, the ancestors, they will build things like the ancestors, like the ancient ancestors, and like Egypt and Kemet. These structures, instead of writing down the equations that built the structures, they would embed the equations in the structures. So if you're studying the structures, if you're studying the work instead of the people, or if you're studying the actual results instead of your feelings about the person, you will come to the same conclusions mathematically. The same thing applies when you're talking about politics. Peter H. Clark ran the gamut, okay? Staunch Republican. All right, they not moving the way I want them to move. Let's see what socialism is about. Okay, I got into the ins and outs of the socialism, not really rocking with them. Let's see what the Democrats are talking about. Not really rocking with them. But at every interval, he got something done for his people. When he was a Republican, he got things done. When he was a socialist, he got things done. When he was, courting or being courted by the Democrats, he got things done. It was for the advancement of black people. These people, the ancestors, don't lose sight of these things. We talked about T. Thomas Fortune. T. Thomas Fortune says, do not cling to one party or the other. Don't worry about the party. Worry about yourself. Worry about your self-interest. That's what's more important. You being a staunch Republican, you being a staunch Democrat means nothing. It means absolutely nothing when either party is willing to give you up for political leverage. So you have to put yourself in a position that will always make you wanted or needed and able for their political success. And once you position yourself that way, they have to listen to what you have to say. And if they want to actually win the election, they have to do what they have to do to get your support. They have to do what they said. This is the political game, ladies and gentlemen. And the ancestors already let us know this over 100 years ago. Yo, listen. They was telling us, like, yo, listen, the white man going to be split every year. Every 2-4 years, the white man is going to be split 50-50, period. That is a constant about white America. This is what I'm saying. Y'all don't be knowing strategy. If we know that white people are going to be split, the majority of the country, right? The highest population of people here are white people. If we know that white people are going to be split essentially 50-50 on issues between Democrat and Republican, that means every non-white, specifically black voter has the power to tip the scale either way. And the only thing that you have to do is leverage that tipping of the scale politically, not feel good legislation. I'm talking about real legislation that's going to help fortify your economics, fortify your further political activity, making sure that the things that are necessary infrastructurally, not surface level superficial shit, you dig what I'm saying, but infrastructure is put in, protections are put in order to get your vote. But instead, they give you lip service and tell you how great you are and how you built this country and all of this other stuff. They G you up. Y'all get lost in the pimping, and then you vote for blue and you vote for red. That's what it's been devolved into. It's been deduced in blue versus red. So where you got people who are on the left for decades, generations, being like, how could y'all vote Republican? And then you got these black Republicans saying the same thing about y'all need to get off the Democrat plantation and all of this other shit. Y'all are playing a losing game. That is not how you play politics. These politicians work for you, son. They need you. If you do not give them power, aka vote for them, they don't have any. Y'all keep messing up the equation. Y'all keep messing up your position in the equation. The ancestors are letting you know this. Yo, you not trying to give us what we want? All right, what the Democrats talking about? Republicans was like, oh, no. We'll elect, we appointed these 3 black people in the legislature. We'll get rid of the black codes. We'll do what you need to do. But y'all are so focused on the pimping. Y'all are so focused on the emotions. Y'all so focused on motherfuckers using the words white supremacy. And at this point, y'all have been pretty much browbeat into accepting white supremacy by other black people. It's like the 5 monkey experiment. Look up the 5 monkey experiment on your own time and you'll know what I'm talking about. We'll talk about it tomorrow, because we get into the end of the stream. Because like I said, I'm about to be watching Medicine in a minute. And we'll finish this video. But I want y'all to understand something, son. The political game is for you to be able to leverage your votes for political action in your area for your benefit. That is the whole point of you voting. It is not for you to show your support for your favorite political party. That is stupid. That is dumb. That is no strategy whatsoever. Y'all don't make no sense by doing that. Y'all are not helping anybody in your community by being a staunch Democrat or a staunch Republican. You help yourself and you help your community by understanding that both of these political parties are here to serve the people. And in any capacity that they are not doing that, they do not deserve your vote, period. So all of the people that tried to make, black men and women feel bad for sitting out of the election, it's none of your goddamn business. To those voters, neither party was offering anything. There's no reason to vote. That's how they viewed it, and I'm not mad at them. This political strategy of making each party work for your vote was so important to Clark, he wrote to the editor of the New York Freeman about it in 1887. In 1890, Marxist Daniel De Leon became the leader of the SLP until 1899, when his opponents split and created the Socialist Party of America. We're not even 20 years into this movement's establishment in America, and we've seen the dissolution and resolution of the party several times now. This split and merge pattern continued into the mid-20th century. This is what I'm saying. You want to back a party that don't even got it together. They keep banding and disbanding, changing names and shit. The research for this shit was so annoying. It was so annoying because I'm talking about or researching one group, but it's actually a different group, but it's actually the same group, but it's actually a different group. And it was so annoying, son. Like, get it together, son. Jeez. By the way, Lucy Gonzalez Parsons and her husband Albert Parsons began their political journey during Reconstruction in Texas, where Albert worked as a printer and became involved in Republican politics, serving as a secretary of the Texas State Senate. In 1872, their interracial marriage and Albert's radical Republican activities forced them to leave Texas due to violent threats. Arriving in Chicago in 1873, Albert first maintained his Republican affiliation while working as a printer. In 1875, both began moving leftward as they witnessed labor conditions in industrial Chicago. Albert joined the Social Democratic Workingmen's Party in 1876, and Lucy began writing for radical papers. In 1877, during the Great Railroad Strike, Albert was fired from the Times for his socialist views and blacklisted from Chicago's printing trade. By 1879, both had fully embraced revolutionary socialism and anarchism. Albert helped found the International Working People's Association, the IWPA, in 1883, and Lucy organized the Working Women's Union and wrote regularly for publications like The Socialist and The Alarm, focusing on women's workers' conditions and revolution. I go, this story is like whatever. Like they were socialists, and then son got killed because somebody had threw a bomb at a cop or something like that. This story, I'm trying to get to the. Here we go. Black people, because like Lucy was cool, she was a socialist. There's really no nobody confirmed that she was black. I know there was some type of like Mexican or Hispanic in there. Postal clerk and married Irene Lewis Horton, and organizing until her death in a house fire in 1942. Hubert Harrison was a towering figure in early 20th century Black America. Known for his intellectual brilliance, radical activism, and significant contributions to socialism and the broader fight for racial and economic justice. Born on April 27, 1883 in Concordia, St. Croix. Yo, listen. It's another through line. Let's keep it honest with y'all. A lot of these Caribbean motherfuckers came over here pushing socialism. This ain't no FBA versus, black immigrant talking point or nothing like that. But, like, legitimately, it's a lot. It's a lot. Like, a lot of these dudes came from the Caribbean pushing socialism. And, like, I did my research on it. I understand that it was a little bit different for them in their countries and all of that. They had, like, caste systems and all of that other stuff. Lighter skinned people, fared better politically, economically, socially, and whatnot. But like, as a Black American, it's like I appreciate the suggestion. You feel me? But like, no, we're not gonna do that. We're not gonna do that. I'm sorry. I'm just on a practical level, bro. You cannot go to somebody else's country and push for another economic and political model. Because my first thing that I'm going to say is, why didn't you do that in your country? Why did you wait to come to my country to do this shit? Why you ain't do this in St. Croix? Why you ain't put socialism in St. Croix so you can bring on this socialist utopia or whatever it is that y'all was ushering in? Why are you in America, a capitalistic country, trying to push socialism? I ain't never seen nobody go to China and try to push capitalism. I ain't never seen that. You dig what I'm saying? So it's like, when it comes to like immigrants coming here, it's like, yo, dog, just enjoy the vibes, bro. You a guest here, enjoy it. Use, we got resources here. We got, all the things that we got here. Use that to your advantage. Build yourself up. All that other shit. Welcome to America. But please stop trying to make it seem like you know better than us. You fled your country. You did. You left your country. For whatever reason, you left. And now you're here based upon all of the things, the opportunities, the economics, and all that other stuff that you can get out of this country, which is cool. Like, that's fine. It's like no different than when people go to like a better school district or whatever. But you definitely not about to come to the country and being like, yo, this, even though I came here for better economic opportunities and all this other shit, I know about economics better than you. There's no way that you are coming to me for money and going to sit here and try to tell me that you can manage money better than me. No way, Jack. No way. No way that I'm subsidizing your entire lifestyle by the way I live, and you're going to tell me I need to change the way I live. No, absolutely not. You need to be able to show me that you can handle yourself. You need to be able to show me that you got proof of concept of being able to show me a prosperous economic model. You ain't no way you about to come to me. I'm the one subsidizing your entire livelihood, and then you're gonna come to me and be like, yo, you need to become a socialist. What, nigga? My capitalism is the reason why you're here. Socialism is not the reason why you're here. Communism is not the reason why you're in this country. You're in this country because of capitalism. Period. So why would I listen to you? This is not to say anything about you personally or to disparage you as an individual, as a person, but understand, in concept, in principle, there's absolutely nothing that you can suggest to me to do economically when the number one reason why you're in my country right now is economics. No way. Sammy says, nah, this is facts. My wife's Jamaican side of the family loves talking that socialist nonsense despite their personal success stories implementing capitalism in America. Facts. I'm gonna let y'all know this, Sammy. You create a dope point, because I try to tell people all of the time that the only reason why these socialists and these communists even feel as brave or as emboldened to say the shit that they're saying about the possibilities of what American socialism or American communism would look like is because of American capitalism. They see all of this excess, they see all of this money, they see the economics of America and being like, oh, we can use that. But they don't ever talk about desolate countries. They don't talk about countries that are on the bottom, to where it's like you have this undeveloped or underdeveloped country. You and all your economic smarts should be able to take that scenario and bolster it, grow it through socialism, bolster it and grow it through communism. But you don't. You come to these already established countries who have trillions and trillions of dollars already made, generated, and all this other stuff via capitalism, and then want to use that capital to fund your socialism. At that point, that's not socialism. That's not communism. That's just capitalism with more steps. That's just capitalism subsidizing socialism. No. So if you are saying, yo, we need to bolster or grow, we'll talk, Vincent. We'll talk. So once you grow and all this other stuff from nothing, then we can talk. But when it comes down to this, if you want to say, yo, I'm a socialist, you dig what I'm saying? I'm a socialist, and I think that the government should be focusing more on the elderly, the children, when it comes to the taxpayer dollars. That I can agree with. Me and you can have a dialogue about that. To bolstering our social programs, our social safety nets, I'll hear that out. But to say that we need to throw out capitalism and then usher in socialism to make sure we take care of the old folks and the babies, you lost me. Holding the government accountable for the tax dollars that we pay them, with that, I'm on board with that. But the minute you say that we need to not only raise taxes currently than the current rates that they are, we also need to have a regime where everything is based upon the state owning shit. You have lost me completely. Completely, you've lost me. So we'll never see eye to eye on that. But again, being able to say, hey, we have these programs for the elderly. We have these programs for the children. We have these programs for former addicts. We have these programs for single mothers and single fathers. We have orphanages. We have all of these different social programs that is not about profit. It's about helping the less fortunate of us, helping our fellow man get on and stay on their feet all day long. All day long, I'm with you. That just speaks to the benevolence of man. That speaks to goodwill, good charity, all of that other stuff. But to say that the government needs to compel these things, I'm not going to be with. So you'll see that Hubert is not the only black immigrant that came over here talking that shit. In the Danish West Indies, now the U.S. Virgin Islands, Harrison immigrated to the United States in 1900 at the age of 17. By 1909, Harrison had secured a job as a postal clerk and married Irene Lewis Horton. His early writings, including critiques of Booker T. Washington's accommodationist approach to racial uplift, caught the attention of Washington's powerful Tuskegee machine, something that we mentioned in our previous video. Washington, leveraging his influence within the Republican Party, had Harrison fired from his postal job in 1910 after he published a scathing critique of him. Watch your mouth. Watch your mouth. Let this be a warning to you. Don't come to my country talking that shit. You're sitting there saying that I'm accommodationist, and I've helped more black American souls. I've helped more black American lives than you ever could. Don't you come to my country talking that shit. I don't want to hear it. Booker T. Washington was no hoe. I keep trying to tell y'all that. Booker T. Washington was a lot of niggas, but he was not a hoe nigga. I can tell you that. So you come to my country popping it. You popping that shit. You talking that socialism shit. You calling me an accommodationist. You talking all of this shit. But you fled your country. Let me show you exactly what my body is about. So the Tuskegee machine found out where Hubert worked and was like, yo, if you want to continue to circulate newspapers around this motherfucker, you're going to fire him. The motherfucker from St. Croix, get him out of here. Get him out of here. He's not allowed to work here no more. He's talking about the big homie. You let him. First of all, you lucky we don't shut this whole shit down, because I don't know how. You know who Booker T. Washington is. He helped your black ass with this newspaper, and you let this nigga come from St. Croix to write scathing articles about OG. You're bugging. Let this be the first and last time that we ever got to say some shit like this to you, my nigga. Don't let nobody come in our fucking country, talk bad about our mans, and then you don't do shit about it. That article should have never even went out. What are you doing? You gonna sit here and act like Booker T. Washington is an accommodationist and he done accommodated your ass? Was he accommodating? Was he an accommodationist when that nigga was funding your newspaper? When he was investing in your shit? Are you out of your mind? Like, Vincent, what these niggas thinking, bro? You think you get to come to my country, talk this socialism shit, talk bad about Booker T, the motherfucking Washington, and not have nothing happen to you? Out of your mind. Motherfuckers is out of their mind, son. You're cooked. Now you're out of here. This setback pushed Harrison toward radical politics as he sought systemic solutions to the oppression he witnessed. See, yeah, now look, this is what happens. This is what happens all of the time with these types. They get rejected. You feel me? They don't have the appeal. Okay? They're not liked, they're not cherished, they're not any of that for real. And then now What happens? Oh, we got to change the world. Nobody likes my ideas, so now I got to change the entire government for them to like my ideas. Every single time, this is how it works. We got to change the external because of how I feel internally. Y'all don't like me. Y'all don't like my ideas. I'm unattractive to the masses. So now we need to overhaul the government. This is the playbook every single time. It comes from social, economic, and cultural and political insecurities. Y'all don't have the pull. Y'all don't have the clout that y'all want. So now you want to change the world. You want to change the world so you can get the power, the clout, and the notoriety. If everybody was a socialist, then I would be loved. I would be respected, like Booker T. Washington is. That's what this is about, yo. This is about hubris. They want to tell you that, oh, this is for the greater good of black people. This is for the greater good of man. Why the hell you ain't do that in St. Croix then? It's nothing but black people in St. Croix. Why didn't you build that up in your home country? If it's all about altruism, if it's all about being able to help the next man, if it's all about philanthropy, if it's all about ushering in a regime that's going to save millions upon millions of black people, why did you have to leave your country of origin to implement it? If it's all like that, I don't believe you. I don't believe you. And I'm letting y'all know now, you black socialists, you black communists, you black Marxists and all that other shit, you will always be in the minority of the minority of the minority. Your message will never, ever resonate with the whole of black America because black America fucks with profit. They fuck with profit. You're never, ever getting them away from that shit. Ever. So you can write all your books, you can write all your fancy tweets, you can castigate capitalism all you want. You are never, ever, ever, ever going to stop. Get black Americans to stop fucking with capitalism. You can get them to hate a cracker or two. You can get them to hate a couple of white people. You know, you can get them all charged up emotionally about some shit that happened 100 years ago. But go ahead and tell them like, yo, we're going to not pursue profit anymore. Go ahead and see how that goes. Witnessed. Harrison joined the Socialist Party of America, or the SPA, in 1911, a time when the party was gaining traction in urban centers like New York City. The SPA had historically struggled to address race, often sidelining the Negro question in favor of a class-only focus. Yo, I'm trying to tell you, though, they don't care. They do not care about your black ass feelings. They do not care about your plight, son. They don't care. This is in 1912. This is a socialist in Union Square. Where are the niggas? Where are the niggas at? And all of this crowd that is supposed to be just about class, we all are one people and all of this shit. Where are the niggas? Can y'all point out one? Can y'all point out one nigga in this crowd? There's hundreds of people in this photo. I need one Negro. I need one nigga in here. None. They do not give a damn about your black ass plight. They don't care. What does the sign say? The workers fight the wars and the business and the bosses, reap the profits. That's a fact. Harrison, however, saw race and class as inseparable in the American context, particularly given the legacy of slavery and the ongoing exploitation of black workers. He became the party's leading black organizer, a rare position for a black American in a predominantly white organization. In 1911, during the New York municipal election, Harrison campaigned for socialist candidates, including Eugene V. Debs, and pioneered outreach to black voters with tailored socialist materials. His efforts helped increase the party's vote tally by thousands, demonstrating black working class potential for socialism. He established the Colored Socialist Club in 1912, a groundbreaking black-led formation within the SPA aimed at organizing black Americans around class struggle. Useful idiots. I'm not saying this to insult Harrison's intelligence. I'm saying it to describe his actual role in all of this. Useful idiot. That's what this is. All right, so listen. We're going to pick back up on this tomorrow. I gave y'all extra 20 minutes just because I didn't want to abandon y'all. Vincent, well, my DM me on Twitter. DM me on Twitter, and I'll give you that information. You dig what I'm saying? I appreciate it. Just make sure you DM me because I don't know what your at name is. But we are going to finish this video. But I'll leave you with this before I get up out of here. When it comes to the people like Hubert Harrison and stuff like that, understand that they were used, okay, to be able to get black Americans on board with this nonsense. He's not the only one. We're going to get into Harry Haywood. We're going to get into White Man. That's his last name. I forgot his first name. But yeah, we're going to get into all of that. But understand that these people were being used by socialists, by communists. And your socialist cousin, your communist, cousin or whatever, your friend, your family that be pushing this shit, they are just picking up the mantle for the people that came before them as useful idiots. Just being honest. So, with that being said, thank you for coming. We are going to be doing a lot more on Patreon. So you want to get a Patreon subscription today, tonight, right now. Patreon.com/Hotep History. Patreon.com/Hotep History. Get you a subscription right now. Right now. Because we're going crazy moving forward on Patreon. Thank you guys. Who we had in the chat today? Let's go back. Vincent, of course. My day ones. Vincent, Sammy, Glasgow, Scruggs. I know I could count on y'all. The Watcher, you becoming a day one. Shout out to you, brother. Who else we had in here? It was just my day ones tonight. It's all good. Trust and believe. I'm letting y'all know right now. If there was half a person in here, I was going to talk. If there's one person in here, if there's no people in here, I'm getting my stream off. Believe it. So I appreciate all of y'all coming. You feel me? I appreciate it. Because y'all rocking with me. But understand, I got to get my shit off regardless. So thank y'all for coming out. We're going to be here tomorrow at 8. I have an interview with my man Lade, Platinum, vintage street fashion historian and collector, archivist. We're going to be getting a lot of great gems when it comes to street fashion and how it's, his influence has went, just throughout history, the history of the influence of street fashion. You're going to love this interview. This is going to be one of my first formal interviews and all of that. It will be on Spaces tomorrow at 4 o'clock. We're going to be talking about that. And then right after that, we jumping right on stream and we going to get to it. We're going to finish this video up. So thank y'all for watching tonight. I appreciate it. Oh, Clifton, my boy Clifton. Yes, sir. Another day one. You guys, I appreciate y'all. And as always, ladies